of partners in Latin America and the Caribbean to combat the scourge of narco-terrorism. And together, we are taking decisive action to confront narco-terrorists who have long inflicted terror, violence, and corruption on citizens throughout the hemisphere. And with on that, I would also add that this weekend, I'm pleased to announce, the President will welcome the heads of state from 12 nations across our Western Hemisphere in Miami, Florida on Saturday. The point of this newfound Latin America summit is to promote freedom, security, and prosperity in our region. The following countries will be in attendance: Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador, Honduras, Panama, Paraguay, Trinidad and Tobago, and maybe some others as well. And the President will be speaking with the leaders of this country who have really formed a historic coalition to work together to address criminal narco-terrorist gangs and cartels and counter illegal and mass migration into not only the United States, but the Western Hemisphere, which remains a key and top priority of this President. Thank you very much, everyone, and you'll see the President yourselves in an hour.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you, Caroline.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma, and you were just watching the White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt giving a press briefing to reporters, mostly taking questions on Operation Epic Fury. And Karoline said that there was, in fact, imminent threat to the United States, responding to one of the questions there, and also asking the press to cover this whole situation fairly, also to highlight the successes of the U.S. military and what has done in Israel. Okay, now let's go on to our top story today. The Department of War has identified 4 of the 6 American soldiers who died during Operation Epic Fury. Secretary of War Hegseth addressed U.S. casualties during the press briefing this morning.
Much was made of the volume of missiles Iran was able to shoot in the first few days. And sadly, as we projected, a few got through and killed 6 of our best, who will hopefully arrive home soon. We will avenge them, no doubt.
The Pentagon yesterday announcing the deaths of Army Reserve Captain Cody Cork, Sergeant First Class Noah Tegens, Sergeant First Class Nicole Amor, and Sergeant Declan Cody. In a statement, the department said they were killed Sunday in Kuwait. The incident is under investigation. The United States Army Reserve expressed its condolences to the families. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth saying the U.S. is winning in the war against Iran. He says the U.S. will have complete control over the country's airspace in the coming days. The secretary was speaking to a press briefing this morning along with General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Take a listen.
I stand before you today with one unmistakable message about Operation Epic Fury. America is winning, decisively, devastatingly, and without mercy. And we have only just begun to hunt, dismantle, demoralize, destroy, and defeat their capabilities, just 4 days in. Starting last night and to be completed in a few days, in under a week, the 2 most powerful air forces in the world will have complete control of Iranian skies, uncontested airspace.
Iran's theater ballistic missile shots fired are down 86% from the first day of fighting, with a 23% decrease just in the last 24 hours. And their one-way attack drone shots are down 73% from the opening days. This progress has allowed CENTCOM to establish localized air superiority across the southern flank of the Iranian coast and penetrate their defenses with overwhelming precision and firepower. We will now begin to expand inland, striking progressively deeper into Iranian territory and creating additional freedom of maneuver for U.S. forces.
Both officials say the U.S. military has enough munitions for ongoing operations against Iran, with Hegseth adding, quote, "Iran cannot outlast us." He says More bombers and fighters will arrive today. Hegseth also saying that a torpedo from a U.S. submarine sank an Iranian ship. He did not reveal the name of the ship, but Sri Lanka announcing today at least 80 people were killed in a submarine strike on an Iranian warship.
Yesterday, in the Indian Ocean, and we'll play it on the screen there, an American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death. The first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II.
Hegseth also reporting that the military killed the Iranian leader behind an alleged plot to assassinate President Trump. He says that target was not the original focus of the war effort, adding that those responsible were eventually placed on the target list. Hegseth did not name the individual. In 2024, the U.S. Justice Department charged an Iranian man in connection to a plot to assassinate Trump, who was then president-elect.
We've known for a long time that Iran had intentions on trying to kill President Trump and or other U.S. Officials. And while that was not the focus of the effort by any stretch of the imagination, in fact, never raised by the president or anybody else, I ensured and others ensured that those who were responsible for that were eventually part of the target list. We eventually had the opportunity to do that from the air.
Turkey says a fired missile from Iran was intercepted and destroyed by NATO defense systems. The incident marks the first time the alliance member has been drawn into the Middle East conflict. Turkey's defense ministry today saying the missile crossed airspace in Iraq and Syria before heading toward Turkey. Here's more.
NATO intercepted the threat before it entered Turkish airspace. Debris that fell in southern Turkey was identified as part of the interceptor missile. Officials report no casualties or injuries. Turkey warned that it has the right to respond to any hostile act and urged all parties to avoid further escalation, adding it will continue discussions with NATO and allied partners. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says there was no sense that the incident would trigger Article 5, which has only been invoked once before after the 9/11 attacks. Article 5 states that an attack on one NATO member is an attack on all members.
The U.S.-Israeli joint operation in the Middle East is continuing. Israel launching a new wave of strikes targeting Iran and Lebanon today. In a post on X, the IDF said it struck a major paramilitary of Iran's Revolutionary Guard. It also targeted internal security command centers in Tehran. The IDF said the sites were used by the Iranian regime to maintain control across the country. In Beirut, massive explosions shook the city this morning. The IDF urged people to evacuate Beirut's southern suburbs, saying Israel would strike Hezbollah targets in the area. Iran and the Lebanese terrorist group Hezbollah launched a combined attack on Israel today. Interception trails were seen over the Tel Aviv area and loud booms were heard. Iran has fired regular missiles and drones at Israel, though the most of the incoming fire has been intercepted. Meanwhile, American and Israeli forces say they're striking Iranian targets nonstop. U.S. government personnel are on the move. The State Department has ordered non-emergency staff and their families at consulates in parts of Pakistan to leave the country. Here's more.
The specific locations concerned are Lahore and Karachi. Pakistan shares a nearly 600-mile border with Iran. The department cited ongoing threats of drone and missile attacks from Iran, along with disruptions to commercial flights. Officials also warned of a risk of terrorist violence, including attacks and other hostile activity in Pakistan. Staff at the U.S. Embassy in Islamabad were not affected. Tensions escalated after at least 22 pro-Iranian demonstrators were shot and killed in Karachi after trying to storm the U.S. consulate. Tensions in Karachi escalated after violent clashes between protesters and security forces left at least 22 people dead and more than 120 injured.
Joining us now is Adam Hardage, Special Operations Combat Veteran and former CIA Operations Officer. And we also have geopolitical strategist Darren Gobb. He's a retired lieutenant colonel who served in the U.S. Army as a Black Hawk helicopter pilot and battalion commander. First of all, good afternoon to you both. Thank you for joining us. Now, today, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth gave us a unique perspective of this war. And I have the clip here. Let's take a listen.
This was never meant to be a fair fight, and it is not a fair fight. We are punching them while they're down, which is exactly how it should be. Thus far, Operation Epic Fury has delivered twice the air power of shock and awe of Iraq in 2003, minus Paul Bremer and the nation building. The campaign has 7 times the intensity of Israel's previous operations against Iran during the 12-day war. 7 times.
So, Adam, twice the power as Iraq compared to Iraq, and then 7 times compared to the 12-day war, and saying this is not a fair fight. Your reactions upon hearing this?
Yeah, well, I mean, what you're hearing is basically a prize fighter kind of discussion. It's very much a departure from what you would see historically from diplomatic circles within the U.S. And I think this president and Secretary Hegseth are trying to send a very clear message to American enemies around the world that the old school is gone, and this is a very different way of doing business, and that they are deadly serious about it. So I mean, I figure, after what we've seen in Venezuela with Maduro, and then Mexico with El Mencho, and now Iran with the Ayatollahs, I think the world is sitting up and taking notice that this administration means very serious business, and they intend to leverage American capabilities to achieve their desired end state and outcome, no matter what the cost.
So, Colonel, can I go to you now? What are you thinking after hearing the intensity that the U.S. military is bringing upon Iran?
Well, this is how it's supposed to be done. When you're going into combat, you're not supposed to want to engage in a fair fight. You're supposed to want to go in to win, and win overwhelmingly, because that saves your lives ultimately. It ends the battle faster because you overwhelm the enemy to the point where they capitulate a whole lot faster, or if they're not even there to capitulate, of course, then it's already over. You don't go into a fight sitting there hoping that it is somehow equal all the way to the end and that you just pull ahead right at the finish line. It's not how this is supposed to work. So from what I'm seeing and what I'm getting out of people in theater, this is exactly what we want to be able to see. You have to go into a place like Iran and overwhelm them very quickly, because they have so many assets that if you let them, if you try to whittle them away slowly, it'll never work. And so I agree with the method. I think the language is correct.
But Adam, we have to talk about the Americans still in the Middle East who are at risk. The U.S. is facilitating charter flights from a number of countries for citizens. So Secretary of State, state official Dylan Johnston saying that since February 28th, over 17,000 American citizens have returned to the United States from the Middle East. Over 8,500 American citizens returning to the U.S. yesterday alone, and the job is not done yet. So on this, what are the risks that Americans are facing in the Middle East right now, Adam?
Sure. I would say probably the biggest risk is just, a casualty of being there, getting caught in the crossfire type thing. So you see this a lot. And frankly, there's been a lot of disruption to all the embassies across the region. So whether you're talking about Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Jordan, the list kind of goes on, and it's really become a situation where you have kind of multiple non-combatant evacuation operations on a small scale happening across the region. So there's obviously threats to U.S. service members, from remote attacks, especially nowadays. You've got drone warfare is becoming a major, probably the leading factor in battle. Drone warfare is very cheap. It's you kind of democratize lethality to the lowest common bidder, and I think we're seeing a lot of that play out, and I think that will just continue to rise. And I would also like to echo what the Colonel said. I completely agree with him. If you're going to go into war, then it should be decisive, and it needs to be brutal. It needs to be swift. It should not be something where we get into these endless wars where we don't have any real clear objectives or desire to actually win. So I completely echo his sentiments.
Right, and the administration is saying that this operation is ahead of schedule a number of times now. So, Colonel Gobb, a similar question to you on this topic. Some are asking whether the administration did enough to get Americans out of the region before this operation. So, just your overall comments here. What is the usual protocol, and was it followed?
Well, I would say that the protocol largely looks like it has been followed to the best extent they can without risking operational security. Because let's just say you were to put out a warning that said, evacuate every embassy and everything by this time on this day. Well, that becomes something that gets picked up on very quickly, and can be something that actually puts operations at risks. So, and also, by the way, Iran has expanded what they're doing beyond what some probably anticipated, and their willingness to go to launch missiles against targets all over the Middle East, out to Turkey, and potentially even going directly east towards, say a Pakistan or Afghanistan for their own reasons. And so you're dealing with an Iran that seems to be on its death rattle, and it's just lashing out at everybody, making more enemies. I think they're doing this right. Ultimately, there's always risk. There's no perfect way to do this, but they've made the assets available. They've advertised the phone numbers and made the systems there. And I can promise you, having used it, the system works. When you put your information in with the Secretary of State's office and say, I need help here, here's my contact, that works. I think you're going to see this play out relatively well, considering what I'm seeing now.
So, Adam, in addition to American citizens, there's also service members who are being impacted right now. Here's Hegseth earlier today talking about this.
Much was made of the volume of missiles Iran was able to shoot in the first few days. And sadly, as we projected, a few got through and killed 6 of our best, who will hopefully arrive home soon. We will avenge them, no doubt.
Adam, President Trump said a couple days ago casualties could rise. Your thoughts on this situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's the profession of arms, and that very well in times of conflict, bullets go both ways, is the old adage. And I would say that, for the people that are concerned about troops in harm's way, obviously we don't want Americans getting hurt. But at the same time, in order to achieve these objectives, I mean, there's a reason why the men and women put on the uniform, and when called to duty, they will go fulfill that duty. As a veteran of 4 wars, Iraq, Afghanistan, West Africa, and Jordan, Syria, it's something that you do, and you certainly say your prayers and you get your mind right with yourself, your mission, and with God, and then leave it up to the universe and go carry out your duties to the best of your ability.
And Colonel Gobb, anything you'd like to add to that?
Now, Adam's right. Ultimately, you put on the uniform, you raise your hand, you accept the risk. You know what could happen. You certainly pray that it doesn't. But I would remind people, too, that this is going to play especially hard in the state of Iowa, where they already lost members of their state in the attacks in Syria. And it sounds like Adam and I have gone over many of the same pieces of terrain. We know the risks in the Middle East in general and in combat specifically. So pray for the best, but do your duty and stay focused on that.
So, Adam, to your previous comment, I'd like to follow up on that because some U.S. lawmakers are calling this a war of choice by Trump. How do you respond to arguments that the U.S. shouldn't start conflicts such as this because it puts U.S. service members in danger?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the nature of the business. If you're going to go into the business of arms, then you have to be prepared to potentially, pay the ultimate price for it. I'm not dismissing any concerns that people have. It's certainly being concerned and taking the best care that we can of our service members is this administration's priority and everything else. But to say that, it's just a war of convenience or something that didn't need to be done is a little bit irresponsible, I would say. I think, the president's been very clear about his objectives. I think he's also a brilliant tactician and strategist in the sense that he won't commit, to these endless wars, and he won't put boots on the ground that don't need to be there or aren't going to be able to achieve a clear national objective. And so, I support what the administration is doing. I hear a lot of people say, we're just doing Israel's bidding or whatnot, and I don't see that to be the case. In this case, I do believe, obviously, that we need to support our allies in the region and across the world. But at the end of the day, when Iran has been negotiated with for 47 years and it hasn't worked, and so at some point, you have to take action. You telegraph that and let the world know that it was going to happen if they didn't come to the table, and they didn't, and now here we are.
So, Colonel, talk to us a bit more about the cost of lives here. What in your view, is the right balance in minimizing casualties and also achieving the mission objectives?
Well, that's a difficult one to answer because what you're trying to do is go in there with the expectation that you'd like to leave with no casualties whatsoever, but you know they're going to happen. So there's no numerical ratio you can put on something like this. You have to lay out your objectives and then you build a plan around the best possible scenario you can to maximize the chances of your people's survival. And that goes back to overwhelming force again. And that by doing that, you put your people in much less risk. And to that question again about is this a war of choice? I would tell you, the number already came up that Adam mentioned. Iran's been at war with us for 47 years. We just have forgotten that we were supposed to be really kind of fighting back instead of constantly taking the punches. We're punching back now, and casualties are to be expected. We certainly don't want any, but I guarantee you the fact that we're talking about no boots on the ground is indicative of the fact that we're not going to go in there with Army and Marine Corps units on the ground to try to do something in Iran. That right there reduces any chances reduces greatly the chance of casualties of any kind. And I think that's where it needs to stop is, we do not need to go on the ground in this country at all.
So Adam, respond to this. Some U.S. lawmakers are depicting service members as victims here, being put in harm's way against their will.
I would just say, that's just political theater, and frankly, it's also disrespectful. American servicemen and women sign up. They sign their name on the bottom line, and they understand that is an oath that is in blood potentially. That's why war is a young man or a young woman's game. And, because the older we get, the more we realize maybe we want to stick around for a little while longer once we have kids and stuff. But the courage that are exhibited by Americans' armed forces are just frankly inspiring and awesome to see. And, I give kudos to the boys and girls that are out there today doing it. And I understand that, harm may come to you, but that's the risk we take. And so, you do the best you can. You reduce risk to mission, risk of force. You come up with the best plan you can. And then when it comes down to it, you got to execute. So the best thing that we could ask for, our lawmakers is for lawmakers to show a little gumption and support for the troops that are actually over there in harm's way doing their duty.
So Colonel Gobb, I started with Adam, so I want to end with you. How do we honor those who risk their lives in wars such as this? Hegseth today talked about avenging them, but in your view, how do we best honor these fallen U.S. service members?
Well, leave the vengeance mission to the military. We'll take care of our own. I promise you that. For everybody else out there who thinks they never know what to do or if they can do enough for the sake of what the military has done for this nation and for people around the world, I would tell you just to live an honorable, peaceful life that makes that sacrifice worth it. Be a husband or a father or a parent of any kind, mom, whatever that is. Raise your kids well. Be a good spouse. Or be a good child, whatever that is. If you lead an honorable life, you will have made their sacrifice worthy and that's all it takes.
Okay, terrific comments from both of you. Colonel Gobb, Adam, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thanks,
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
The Chinese regime has called for Iran, the U.S., and Israel to stop fighting, citing impacts to global economic growth. And analyst says China could be hurt the most in this war. We come back with a discussion.
This is such a gentle painting, so beautifully portrayed.
A group of people reading together in this simple, everyday-looking living room. A young girl reading along with an adult, a grandparent sitting in the lotus position, a businessman in his typical suit.
You see all those people, they look like they have quietly settled down there. And you as a viewer, it looks like you've just stepped in the door.
You can't see what it is they're reading, so you're a little bit curious and you're kind of invited to walk in.
This harmonious feeling is not by accident. It is the very subject of the work. The book they are reading is the main text of Falun Gong, which is an ancient Chinese spiritual discipline in the Buddhist tradition. At the core of Falun Gong are the values of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. Unfortunately, the practice is banned in China, where the artist resides. Thousands have been killed for their faith. Golden energy blooms into the room as a result of their steadfast faith. The painting on the back wall reminds us of this work's title, Plum Blossoms in a Muddy World.
It's also a metaphor for the practitioners that are sitting in the room as plum blossoms.
They signify perseverance and hope that all brutal winters end and life is renewed once again.
It's a magical painting.
First time that when I see him, a lot of stuff came into my mind because I wasn't prepared at all. I know the first 3 months of his life were really important, and I wanted to be there all the time for him. First time he was like, "Daddy, Daddy." That was one of his first words. He grew up so quick. He just surprised me every day. He's really smart. I really think he can be an astronaut, president. But I'm gonna support him for wherever he wants to be. Whether he want to be a photographer, musician, whatever. As a father, I guess you don't focus on you. I put himself first. That's what a dad does.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
So there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
A major debate coming to a head in Congress, once again over the War Powers Act. Senate Democrats today are pushing to stop U.S. military operations in Iran and prevent President Trump from taking further action without congressional approval. The expected vote comes after Secretary of State Marco Rubio held a closed-door briefing with lawmakers last evening to discuss the developments in Iran. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has more.
The first vote in Congress on the Iran War Powers Act is happening later today in the Senate, but House Speaker Mike Johnson is also facing the possibility of the same vote being forced to the floor in the House, a move that he's described as dangerous.
Imagine a scenario where Congress would vote to tell the commander-in-chief that he was no longer allowed to complete this mission. That would be a very dangerous thing. You see that Iran is firing almost seemingly indiscriminately at targets. They're trying to intimidate America. They're trying to test our resolve.
The Speaker has insisted that this is an operation, not an official war. Therefore, Congress doesn't need to approve it. Last evening, Secretary of State Marco Rubio briefed lawmakers behind closed doors with the goal to reassure lawmakers that the administration's objectives were clear. The initial strikes aimed at wiping out Tehran's missiles and other military capabilities. While Republicans largely reiterated support for the administration's operation, many Democrats left that briefing with complaints, mainly over what they called a lack of planning and lack of congressional oversight.
They have shifting goals, different goals all the time, different answers every day, and I am truly worried about mission creep.
Now, to be clear, the administration has insisted that they do have clear objectives and strategies at play. But during a Pentagon briefing earlier this week, they said that they couldn't lay out for American people too many specifics to avoid tipping off the enemy. While most Democrats are questioning the administration, a few, including Congressman Greg Landsman of Ohio and Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, say the strikes were justified.
You know what? This was overall a good thing. You don't have to agree on everything. So I'm going to be honest. So, why can't you just acknowledge that one of the most evil people on the face of the earth was erased? That's a good thing.
Senator Lindsey Graham said that Iran made a miscalculation when it retaliated by striking several nearby countries, but he added that it's had a good effect and that it's driven other countries in the Middle East to become more involved in the fight for stability in the region.
The countries now are more intent than ever to end the threat forever. So what I see in the coming days is more capability directed at the regime that's non-American, more planes flying that are non-Americans.
While the administration has insisted that the initial goal here was not to force regime change, President Trump is encouraging the people of Iran to seize the day to establish a new government. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
The Chinese regime has called for Iran, the U.S., and Israel to stop fighting, citing impacts to global economic growth. Joining us now is Daniel Lacaille, chief economist at Tressis Hedge Fund, international financial analyst, and author of the book Freedom or Equality. Daniel, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us once again. So a Chinese regime foreign ministry spokesperson posted on X today saying the Strait of Hormuz is an important international trade route and keeping the region stable benefits the international community. So I understand, Daniel, you wrote an article on your website about this. It's titled, Iran Attack Escalation May Hurt China's Economy More Than Anyone. So on this, can you just talk to us about it? Why does this conflict hurt China more than any other country?
Yes, if we look at the global implications, for example, for the United States, the economic impact is very limited. And as you can see in the stock market, the markets are not reacting to it. And it's also a producer of more than 13.8 million barrels a day. It's the largest oil producer in the world. Now, in the case of shutting down the Strait of Hormuz or the escalation of conflict with Iran, the most impacted negatively is China, because 80% of the traffic going through the Strait of Hormuz goes to China. Furthermore, China is importing almost 80% of everything that the Iranian regime is selling abroad. Therefore, it would not just be an impact of reduction in supply that could certainly hurt the economic activity of some of the Chinese factories, but also, and I think that this is the most important thing, is that China receives those products thanks to the US sanctions and thanks to the agreements with Iran at very, very low prices. And obviously, the alternatives, if there is not a disruption of supply, would be to purchase those goods from crude oil to jet fuel to naphtha, etc., at a significantly higher price. We're talking double, etc. So the entire negative impact of a disruption of supply from Iran would fall on the shoulders of the Chinese economy. And I think that that is why they are so adamant about not being in a position of seeing the Strait of Hormuz being shut down.
So Daniel, as you know, this operation have already dramatically reduced tanker traffic through the strait. So let's talk specifics here. Can you give us some actual examples? What are the immediate and real world impacts that you can think of on China and its manufacturing economy?
Number one, obviously, is that if the traffic going to China starts to disrupt the supply of jet fuel and the supply of naphtha, that would have immediate impact on the chemical industry and on the airline industry. That is obvious. The impact, obviously, is uncertain, but it can be from disruption of supply to having to look for alternatives at a much higher price. China will obviously try to get those products from, for example, Russia. But again, it is a very, very significant premium compared to the price and the conditions that they get from the Iranian regime. The shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz doesn't happen easily. Iran has tried to shut down the strait many, many times, but it's never done it. And what we have seen in the past 2 decades, in which shipping companies and global suppliers have grown accustomed to the idea that at some point there's going to be a threat due to geopolitical risk, is that most of those ships immediately have an opportunity to go through different routes to the west. That's why only 7% of the traffic of the Strait of Hormuz goes to the European Union and less than 4% goes to the United States. So in essence, what we see is that this conflict is going to generate a very significant impact on the Chinese economy short term, driving higher the price of imports at best, or generating disruption in supply for key industries that are essential right now for their exporting activity.
So Daniel, is there any path for China to completely negate or offset its source of Iranian oil?
Oh, there is. Obviously, China has a strategic partner that is Russia, but it takes time. It takes quite a bit of time. It's not something that happens from one day to another, particularly in an environment like the one that we're living right now, in which there is global uncertainty and vessels have been diverted all over the world, no? So, for example, most of the oil that is stored at sea is stored in the west of the European continent, no? And that also part in the eastern coasts. And that is virtually impossible to bring to China and offset the volumes coming from Iran very quickly. The Iranian regime has said that they will allow any vessel with a Chinese flag to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. But that, to be fairly honest, is a bit laughable, because anyone that knows the Strait of Hormuz is a 34-kilometer wide strait in the most narrow side. And more importantly, anyone can suddenly change and put a Chinese flag and move on. No, so it defies all purposes. More importantly is that Iran shutting down the Strait of Hormuz shoots itself in the foot, because they stop receiving the enormous amount of reserves that they receive from exports. 80%, as I said prior, of the volume that goes through the strait is from Iran's own exports.
Yeah, I had to chuckle a little bit as well when you say a ship waving a Chinese flag would be allowed to pass through. Because as you were saying that, we were playing footage of how small the ships are in the waters. You could barely make out anything, let alone a flag on this ship. So the next question I have for you is, what would you say has been the cumulative impact, with the situation in Iran, but as well coupled with Venezuela, right, on China?
Oh, obviously, number one is that Venezuela and Iran were the number one and number two sources of supply of either free or heavily discounted oil. So imagine the profits that Chinese refineries were generating, and the benefit for GDP, obviously much lower imports, and the benefits in terms of getting cheap or literally free, as in the case of Venezuela, oil. All of that is an enormous benefit for the Chinese economy. Right now, it'll have to find alternative suppliers, those alternative suppliers are not going to be given oil for free or heavily discounted as Iran is doing, because they're not in the same difficult situation. And even if they are able to look for alternatives from Russia, it's not easy. Let's remember that Russia right now is not a big driver of the imports of oil from China because of the challenges of transport. No, so all of those elements are going to add to the cost of production, is going to add to working capital, and is certainly going to add to the negative impact on GDP from imports. No, higher imports, lower GDP.
Okay, Daniel, just one final question. The Department of War has said that in the coming days, the operation will increase in intensity, with bombs hitting Iran harder. So I'm wondering here, because China has made the Belt and Road Initiative plans with Iran for many years, right? They have cooperated for at least a decade. So what is the impact on this?
Well, I think that the reason why the Chinese government has decided to move to have complete inaction in this decision of the United States and Israel is double. Number one is that they know that the regime is basically over. So it would make no sense to deploy billions of dollars in trying to defend it. The second is that they expect, as in Venezuela, that they will be able to maintain at least a significant proportion of the claims to property, reserves, or long-term contracts. So I think that it's basically a sort of policy of trying to reduce the negative damages, if that makes any sense. And in the thing, and I think that it's also very important to understand that by now we will start to see, as from now, in fact, if there is a change of regime, we'll start to get a lot of information about how much of those funds that have been provided by China and Russia have been squandered or literally stolen by the regime itself.
Okay, Daniel, great to hear your insight as always. Thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
London police have arrested 3 men suspected of spying for China. The suspects were detained in London and Wales for allegedly assisting a foreign intelligence service in violation of the country's National Security Act. These arrests come amid growing concerns about Chinese espionage and political interference in the UK. The UK's security service, MI5, warned last year that Chinese agents have made targeted and widespread efforts to recruit lawmakers and others. It says they have used LinkedIn and cover companies. Beijing denies the allegations. Security Minister Dan Jarvis has expressed alarm over what he calls an increasing pattern of covert activity from Chinese state-linked actors targeting UK democracy. And here in the United States, where violence against a faith group on the streets of New York City is raising concerns. Just a couple of days ago, video footage shows an Asian man assaulting a woman in Flushing, New York, while she was distributing flyers to call for an end to China's persecution of her faith. Security camera footage shows a man who appears to be Asian striking the woman, knocking her to the ground and running away. The woman's hat and glasses fell off during the assault. The attacker's face was recorded, and now police are investigating the incident. The woman was distributing flyers hoping to raise awareness of the ongoing persecution in China against her faith, Falun Gong, and calling on people to quit the Chinese Communist Party and its affiliated organizations. Falun Gong practitioners have been engaging in nonviolent demonstrations against the persecution for over 25 years. The White House calling Operation Epic Fury a resounding success. Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt today laying out President Trump's 4 objectives of the mission, as well as the current progress.
Number 1, destroy the regime's deadly ballistic missiles and completely raze their missile industry to the ground. Number 2, annihilate the Iranian regime's navy. And so far, we have destroyed more than 20 Iranian ships, including their top submarine last night, using a torpedo for the first time since World War II. There is not a single Iranian ship underway in the Arabian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, or the Gulf of Oman. Number 3, Operation Epic Fury will ensure the regime's terrorist proxies in the region can no longer destabilize the region or the free world and attack our armed forces. And thus far, Iran's proxies are hardly putting up a fight. Number 4, this mission will guarantee that Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon.
The White House says U.S. forces have struck more than 2,000 targets, destroying hundreds of Iranian ballistic missiles, launchers, and drones. The U.S. expects to have complete and total dominance over Iranian airspace in the coming hours. Leavitt says Iranian ballistic missile launches are down 86% from day one levels. She adds that the president wants freedom for the Iranian people, but the White House stops short of explicitly listing regime change as one of the goals. So far, 6 U.S. service members were killed in the operation. The president will attend their dignified transfer. One of the other priorities of the administration at the moment is evacuating Americans from the Middle East.
Since the launch of Operation Epic Fury, more than 17,500 Americans have safely returned home from the Middle East, with over 8,500 American citizens returning home to the United States just yesterday alone. If you are a U.S. citizen in the Middle East looking to return to the United States, the Secretary of State asks that you please register with the State Department at step.state.gov. The State Department will identify where you are and provide travel options directly to you.
And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says Trump's global 10% replacement tariff is set to rise to 15% later this week. More news after this break. Don't go away.
According to ancient Chinese medicine, purslane is considered a medicinal herb and is used to help lower cholesterol, improve vascular functions, and prevent diabetes. Perilla seeds can nourish the lungs and spleen. It is used to treat asthma and improve pulmonary functions. Puritan Green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds from Hwangmae Mountain in South Korea. It contains over 90% of omega-3, 6, 7, and 9, the highest concentration possible without chemical additives. The soft gel is made of natural seaweed. It is 100% organic and vegan. Both adults and children can take it with peace of mind. Ancient recipes were passed down from heaven to bring prosperity and longevity. Puritan Green vegetable omega-3.
Hi, I'm Jane Seymour, and I spent years on TV playing a doctor. But I learned about the heartbreaking reality of heart disease and stroke when they touched my own life. My father nearly died before having a quadruple bypass and valve replacement that saved him. And my mom, who was my inspiration, suffered a stroke that took away her speech, her ability to move, and ultimately her life. To see someone so vibrant, so positive, who'd survived so much in life, be debilitated by a stroke, it was devastating, and also a wake-up call. And that's why I'm so passionate about supporting the American Heart Association. They're doing more every day to stop needless deaths. But they simply can't do their life-saving work without you. So please call now or go to helpheart.org. And for only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, your donation will go to work to do amazing things, like fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I hope that you'll open your heart right now and join me. Please call now or go to helpheart.org, give $19 a month, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can proudly wear to show that you're part of a community of monthly donors who are helping save lives. A healthy heart, it's the spirit of life. It makes it possible to do the things that you love, to spend time with your friends and family and fulfill your life's dreams. But so many won't have that chance. Heart disease is America's #1 killer and the #1 killer of women. And that's why I'll do whatever I can to make sure others don't die from heart disease before their time. So please join me. Call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org and help save even more lives. Thank you.
President Trump is set to meet with the leaders of major tech companies, including Google, Meta, and OpenAI. The meeting is aimed at protecting consumers from rising electricity costs amid the rapid expansion of energy demands in data centers. Tech companies are investing billions in new artificial intelligence computing capacity that draws vast amounts of electricity. As November's midterm elections approach, voters are expressing concerns about energy affordability and data centers straining the country's power grids. Trump announced what he called a ratepayer protection pledge in a State of the Union address last week. As part of the pledge, tech companies would commit to measures to ensure AI infrastructure doesn't drive higher utility bills for households and small businesses. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says tariffs could be on their way up. He says raising the temporary global import tariff from 10 to 15% will likely be implemented sometime this week.
And again, that's under something called Section 122, and that's a 150-day authority. And during that time, during the 150 days, we will see studies from U.S. TR on Section 301 tariffs, from Commerce on Section 232.
Bessent also predicted that by August, U.S. tariff rates would effectively return to levels seen before the Supreme Court struck them down. The court ruled last month that the president exceeded his authority by imposing tariffs. Trump then signed a new order under a different law for a global 10% tariff. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz defending himself in a probe of alleged fraud. He is testifying before the House Oversight Committee today.
Federal prosecutors estimate that as much as $9 billion may have been stolen from just 14 Medicaid programs administered by the state of Minnesota. Those programs have cost taxpayers more than $18 billion since 2018, and investigators believe that half or more of that spending may have been lost to fraud. And that did not happen overnight. As our investigation has shown, it happened because state leadership failed repeatedly to intervene.
Although Minnesota's programs have overwhelmingly achieved their intended purposes, they're not immune from fraud. I'll be the first to acknowledge that. But let me be clear. In Minnesota, if you defraud public programs, if you steal taxpayer money, we'll find you, we'll prosecute you, we'll convict you, and we'll throw you in jail. In this anti-fraud mission, we keep good company. Across the country, our nation's governors work hard every single day to combat fraud in their programs. But even as we confront issues similar to our sister states, the people of Minnesota have been singled out and targeted for political retribution at an unparalleled scale.
The governor says he is committed to combating fraud and has created positions for this effort. He adds that Minnesota will do so without compromising assistance to those in need. He's also using the opportunity to voice his disapproval of the Trump administration's immigration enforcement operation in his state. Republicans on the committee accused the Minnesota governor of a failure of leadership. They say the leaders of Minnesota failed to act despite repeated warning signs of fraud.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Governor, why didn't you tell the truth? Why didn't you just tell the truth about the Feeding Our Future program? This program, my understanding, received $3 million the first year. Within a couple years was getting $200 million of taxpayer money. Whistleblowers raised concerns. As the chairman said, auditors raised concerns. Everybody raised concerns. March 30th, 2021, the payments are stopped. And a little over a month later, the payments are restarted. Why didn't you tell the truth about why you restarted the payments?
Well, Chairman, we did tell you. And Feeding Our Future grew because of the pandemic. And
I didn't ask that question. I said, why didn't you tell the truth about why you restarted the payments? The payments stopped because there were concerns, obviously. It wouldn't stop the payments. Then they're restarted a month later. What was the reason for restarting the payments?
My understanding was the agency believed that the court had required them to make those payments.
Democrats on the committee are saying the Trump administration's pause on federal funding is hurting those in real need. They say fraud investigations shouldn't punish those in need. Many of them also using their time to draw attention to immigration enforcement instead of fraud. Alongside the governor, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison also testified. As this is a developing situation, we'll keep you updated on the latest information. The 2026 midterm election season kicked off yesterday with several high-profile primary elections. NTD's Daniel Monahan has the key takeaways.
In Texas, Senator John Cornyn has been pushed into a runoff against Attorney General Ken Paxton in the state's Republican Senate primary, one of yesterday's most closely watched races.
The statewide early results are in, and we did very well, as expected, and we were on to the runoff.
Cornyn is seeking a fifth term, but facing a tough challenge from Paxton, the state attorney general. He hopes to avoid becoming the first Republican senator in Texas history not to be renominated. Although Cornyn has expressed occasional skepticism of President Trump, he has been a reliable ally to the president. Paxton, however, says he is more aligned with Trump's Make America Great Again movement. President Trump didn't endorse either candidate during the primary, but the results may raise pressure on him to take a side. The two will meet in a head-to-head contest on May 26th. On the Democratic side, the Associated Press declared State Representative James Tallarico the winner over Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett in Texas's closely watched Democratic Senate primary. He'll face the winner of the runoff between Cornyn and Paxton. The Tallarico campaign stressed the unprecedented numbers of young voters, independent and Republicans supporting his campaign.
We are not just trying to win an election. We are trying to fundamentally change our politics.
Some voting uncertainty occurred in the contest. A Dallas County judge extended Democratic polling hours to 9 p.m. after early confusion left some voters turned away. Just before the extension ended, the Texas Supreme Court blocked the order, saying voting must proceed as permitted. U.S. Representative Crockett criticized the situation.
But I can tell you now that people have been disenfranchised. The reason that we knew that there were problems is because we were receiving the phone calls and the emails.
In a major Republican primary upset, CNN's Decision Desk projects that Texas State Representative Steve Toth will defeat Congressman Dan Crenshaw in the race for Texas's 2nd Congressional District. Crenshaw, a 4-term congressman and former Navy SEAL, faced criticism from the conservative wing of his party despite his ties to President Trump. His backing the resettlement of Afghani refugees and vote to certify the 2020 election results put him at odds with key MAGA supporters. Senator Ted Cruz endorsed Toth and appeared in a super PAC ad backing the challenger. And the November matchup for the U.S. Senate race in North Carolina is set, with Republican Michael Whatley and Democrat Roy Cooper facing off. Whatley won the GOP primary with about 64% of the vote, while Cooper secured the Democratic nomination. The winner will succeed Senator Tom Tillis, who chose not to run for re-election. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
More than 17,000 Americans have returned from the Middle East amid ongoing U.S. strikes against Iran. The State Department says it will continue to actively assist any American citizen abroad who wishes to leave the region. More stories coming up after this break.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children. She didn't know what to do.
Did you have a good day at school?
She gave them some broth without any bread.
There you go.
And kissed them all soundly.
Night night.
Good night. And put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
大提琴不仅仅是一件乐器，它是有生命、有感情的，需要我们精心的照顾。往往我们一个小小的动作，可能都会对人情绪产生微妙的影响。天音的品牌是福星，我们对于传统的理念很荣幸被神韵艺术团 选为指定供应商。时间是酿造音色的不可替代的陪伴。我跟大提琴已经有60多年的友情了，每一把琴都有它自己的个性，熟悉它，才能真正发挥它的潜力。所以，我希望给你的每一把琴，都是首先我所信任的。
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. The White House announcing dominance over Iranian airspace in the next few hours. That's as it says the Iranian regime is weakening by the day. The U.S. is increasing its attacks on the leftover Iranian regime. More fighter jets and more bombers are arriving in the Middle East today, the latest on the fight against the Iranian regime. More than 17,000 Americans have returned from the Middle East amid ongoing U.S. strikes against Iran. The State Department says it will continue to actively assist any American citizen abroad who wishes to leave the region. U.S. strikes on Iran are a crushing blow to China's oil supply. That's as China buys 80 to 90% of Iran's sanctioned oil, with China already on an economic downturn. How will this impact China's economy? And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says Trump's global 10% replacement tariff is set to rise to 15% later this week. And the White House saying that U.S. will have complete control over Iranian airspace within the next few hours. That's as it says the Iranian regime's retaliatory strikes are weakening by the day. We now go live to NTD's Washington correspondent Mari Otsu at the White House. Mari, good afternoon.
Hey, Don, good afternoon. Yeah, that's right. And the White House is also saying that the Iranian regime is being, quote, absolutely crushed. Press Secretary Leavitt announcing that at the top of her briefing, while also saying that 47 years of the U.S., quote, enabling and tolerating the terrorist regime are over. Press Secretary Leavitt is also laying out President Trump's 4 objectives for Operation Epic Fury. Take a look.
President has said repeatedly that the objectives of Operation Epic Fury are the 4 military objectives that I laid out for you previously: to destroy Iran's navy, to destroy their ballistic missile capacity, to ensure their proxies in the region can no longer harm Americans, and to also ensure that they can never obtain a nuclear weapon. As for what comes next for Iran, the president has said, of course, it's a good thing for the United States to want freedom for the Iranian people, and ultimately we hope that freedom rests in their hands.
The White House also going more into the reasoning behind President Trump's decision to strike when he did, saying that negotiations with the Iranian regime, they lied, quote, delayed, and tried to string the U.S. along in order to continue building up their ballistic missile system and other deadly weaponry. Press Secretary Leavitt also is saying that there's been a significant reduction in the strikes since day one, which is a sign that the Iranian regime is weakening by the day. Take a look.
The Iranian rogue regime, their retaliatory strikes against the United States and the threat reduction has reduced significantly. If you look at the Iranian ballistic missile launches, they're down 86% from day one levels. So while the United States military continues to increase its complete dominance over this rogue regime, they are weakening day by day.
Meanwhile, the White House is extending its prayers and condolences to the now 6 U.S. service members killed in the operation. Press Secretary Leavitt today announcing that President Trump will be attending their dignified transfer. Don, back to you.
Okay, Mari, thank you. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said the U.S. will start striking progressively deeper into Iranian territory. Joining us now is retired U.S. Marine Colonel Mike Jernigan. He's a visiting fellow in the Allison Center for National Security at the Heritage Foundation. So, Mike, good afternoon. Thank you for being here with us today. I have a soundbite of Hegseth, Secretary Hegseth, this morning, giving an update on Operation Epic Fury.
Starting last night and to be completed in a few days, in under a week, the two most powerful air forces in the world will have complete control of Iranian skies, uncontested airspace.
So, Mike, just for our viewers who may not be completely familiar with this concept, can you explain for us what uncontested airspace means for Operation Epic Fury, the significance, the benefits, and what does this guarantee?
Don, thank you for having me. Uncontested airspace is that there is nobody significant that can threaten the U.S. aircraft, either from other aircraft or from ground-based missile launchers. Think about the crosswalk in any city. When everybody's going in a different direction, there's lots of people. But when we use the crosswalk signs, there's a few people in one direction. And then when all the crosswalk signs are off, there's nobody in the crosswalk. That's essentially what we've done with air superiority and uncontested airspace.
Okay, so Colonel, here's another clip. I want to play this as well of what Hegseth is saying the U.S. will do.
And now, with complete control of the skies, we will be using 500-pound, 1,000-pound, and 2,000-pound GPS and laser-guided precision gravity bombs, of which we have a nearly unlimited stockpile.
So what caught my attention was the use of 2,000-pound bombs on Iran. Now, I'm not claiming to be any sort of expert on this, but maybe just very briefly describe the force of power that the bombs that the U.S. intends to use described by Hegseth.
So 2,000-pound bombs and 500-pound bombs are standard bomb sizes. There's a module on the front that can make it a guided bomb, a smart bomb, if you will. And we use the bigger 2,000 bombs on the more significant targets, larger buildings, larger defensive positions, large rocket launchers. We'll use the 500-pound bombs on smaller targets.
Okay, so now Hegseth is saying this is not a fair fight. So, I mean, what is Iran up against here with the U.S. and Israel teaming up, their combined power of their military?
Yeah, they're up against, as the Secretary said, two of the best air forces in the world. And what's notable is that they are cooperating. They're doing this together. This is not just the Israelis. This is not just the Americans. But we're doing synchronization of targets and communications. So the Israelis are striking one set of targets and the Americans are striking another, so that we're not putting some of those 2,000-pound bombs on the same target. And so what the Iranians are up against is they're busily irritating everybody in their neighborhood by shooting missiles at them. And people are seeing the Iranians for what they are in the world.
Okay, Colonel, with that being said, how long can Iran sustain this war militarily? Because President Trump has said this operation could just take 4 to 5 weeks.
Yeah. The targets will be continued to be degraded in an order of significance. We've gotten the most dangerous ones that could hit Americans and Israelis from the most distance, and now we're moving closer into different targets. How long this takes is many ways up to the Iranians. When the people decide that they're ready for a new government, from the U.S. and the Israeli end, it will go until they've eliminated all the targets that are on their list to go with the stated objectives of ensuring that the Iranians can never have nuclear missiles again. They don't have the ability to harm their neighbors or anybody else in the world.
And Hegseth said the Iranian Air Force is no more built for 1996. I mean, is the Iranian military technology that outdated?
If you've seen the latest Top Gun movie, there's an unknown country that has an ancient F-14 that they flew, and that's representative of Iran. Their aircraft has been degraded, and it's of older supply on the American side, and then also on the Russian side. The Iranians have kind of isolated themselves from their friends and have none. And when they run out of aircraft, they don't get any more. There is no Walmart for Iranian aircraft.
Okay, just a couple more things I'd like to get your expertise on. So according to the Secretary of War, Iran's ability to launch missiles significantly diminished. I'm just wondering here, is there any way at all for Iran to regenerate missile capacity?
That's one of the objectives, is to make sure that not only do we destroy their launchers and their existing missiles, but we destroy their mechanism to be able to create more missiles.
And NATO air defenses destroyed an Iranian ballistic missile headed into Turkish airspace. You're aware of this? Turkey has the option to invoke NATO's Article 4, right, which could lead to the alliance's Article 5, raising the possibility of an expansion on the conflict. But, Hegseth today brushed off the suggestion. What is your reading then on the situation? And what do you think is behind Iran's apparent targeting of Turkey?
Let me answer the different question first. The title, the Article 5, you're correct that the Turkish have to ask for assistance, but it also just, it triggers a consultation, and then it's voluntary assistance. So those things have to happen for there to be any other NATO-type involvement in the missile to Turkey. And to answer your question, your second question about what do I think about Iranians striking the Turkish, I think the Iranians have been bullies in the world for a long time, and now they're lashing out with everything they have in any direction.
So just finally, do you think Iran actually has a game plan here in this operation?
Not anymore. I think they're on the wrong end of a whack-a-mole game, and their game plan is try to keep their heads down and preserve as much as their military equipment and political power that they can.
Okay, well, Colonel, thank you for speaking with us. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me.
Meanwhile, more than 17,000 Americans have returned from the Middle East amid ongoing U.S. strikes against Iran. The State Department says over 8,500 American citizens arrived in the U.S. yesterday alone.
We're identifying options so that Americans who call and register will be able to move from areas where airspace is closed or to where airspace is open, where they can either board a commercial flight or a charter flight. We're actively, every single second, identifying additional options to help the American people who wish to leave the Middle East.
The State Department said more Americans have left the Middle East for other countries in Europe and Asia. Others are still in transit back to the U.S. The department said it had helped close to 6,500 Americans abroad with security guidance and travel assistance. And U.S. government personnel are on the move. The State Department has ordered non-emergency staff and their families at consulates in parts of Pakistan to leave the country. Here's more.
The specific locations concerned are Lahore and Karachi. Pakistan shares a nearly 600-mile border with Iran. The department cited ongoing threats of drone and missile attacks from Iran, along with disruptions to commercial flights. Officials also warned of a risk of terrorist violence, including attacks and other hostile activity in Pakistan. Staff at the U.S. Embassy in Islamabad were not affected. Tensions escalated after at least 22 pro-Iranian demonstrators were shot and killed in Karachi after trying to storm the U.S. consulate. Tensions in Karachi escalated after violent clashes between protesters and security forces left at least 22 people dead and more than 120 injured.
Coming up soon, President Trump is hosting a roundtable on protecting ratepayers. We'll bring you that event live when we come back from this break. Stay with us.
I'm Amy Grant, and I want to talk to you from my heart about the heart. I would have been the last person on the list to say this woman has a problem with her heart. So no, there was nothing about my life that said, you have a ticking time bomb in your chest. But I did. I wound up in the office of a cardiologist because I was there with my husband. And at the tail end of that, the cardiologist looked at me and said, I want to see you. No one was more surprised than I was to learn I was living with a rare heart condition. He said, Amy, this condition, you'll be fine, and then catastrophic. A few months later, I had open heart surgery that saved my life. And I owe it to the research and life-saving medical breakthroughs developed by the American Heart Association. That's why I'm asking you to join me and become a monthly donor to the American Heart Association. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. this could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, but your support can save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card and we'll send you this special t-shirt you can wear to show you're part of a community of monthly donors working to help save more lives like mine. I'm grateful for the American Heart Association. Their research gave me more time to do the things I love with the people I love. So listen to your heart. I'm here today because I did. Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now to become a monthly donor and help save even more lives. Thank you.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.
He was very dedicated, hardworking. He connected with his teachers. He connected with other students. That was one of the key reasons why he was able to keep forging ahead.
It was amazing to see him graduate. This was one thing that meant so much to him, and of course, it meant so much to us too.
With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed. That support is everything.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Turkey says a fired missile from Iran was intercepted and destroyed by NATO defense systems. The incident marks the first time the alliance member has been drawn into the Middle East conflict. Turkey's defense ministry today saying the missile crossed airspace in Iraq and Syria before heading toward Turkey. Here's more.
NATO intercepted the threat before it entered Turkish airspace. Debris that fell in southern Turkey was identified as part of the interceptor missile. Officials report no casualties or injuries. Turkey warned that it has the right to respond to any hostile act and urged all parties to avoid further escalation, adding it will continue discussions with NATO and allied partners. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says there was no sense that the incident would trigger Article 5, which has only been invoked once before after the 9/11 attacks. Article 5 states that an attack on one NATO member is an attack on all members.
The U.S.-Israeli joint operation in the Middle East is continuing. Israel launching a new wave of strikes targeting Iran and Lebanon today. In a post on X, the IDF said it struck a major paramilitary of Iran's Revolutionary Guard. It also targeted internal security command centers in Tehran. The IDF said the sites were used by the Iranian regime to maintain control across the country. In Beirut, massive explosions shook the city this morning. The IDF urged people to evacuate Beirut's southern suburbs, saying Israel would strike Hezbollah targets in the area. Iran and the Lebanese terrorist group Hezbollah launched a combined attack on Israel today. Interception trails were seen over the Tel Aviv area and loud booms were heard. Iran has fired regular missiles and drones at Israel, though the most of the incoming fire has been intercepted. Meanwhile, American and Israeli forces say they're striking Iranian targets nonstop. President Trump is holding a roundtable at the White House on ratepayer protection pledge. Let's take a look at that.
Deal, one of the worst deals ever made, the Obama nuclear deal. I call it the Obama nuclear deal, where he gave everything to Iran, including a nuclear weapon. It was a road to a nuclear weapon. Bad things would have happened 4 years ago, because they would have had a weapon 4 years ago if I didn't terminate that deal. So we're in a very strong position now, and their leadership is just rapidly going. Everybody that seems to want to be a leader, they end up dead. And it's an amazing thing that's taking place before your eyes, because for 47 years we were pushed around, and we shouldn't have been. And I think I can say, and you see it as well as I do, you see the tremendous progress that's being made. Their missiles are being wiped out rapidly. Their launchers are being wiped out. They're attacking their neighbors. They're attacking their in some cases allies, or not so long ago allies. And, you know, it's really a nation that was out of control, and they would have used it on us if we let them, if we waited any longer. A big factor was Soleimani, the killing of Soleimani in my first term. And maybe the biggest factor was the rebuilding of the military in my first term. And then the B-2s hit the, and I use the word obliterate because it really was a complete obliteration of their nuclear potential. And that set them back very, very seriously. If we didn't hit within 2 weeks, they would have had a nuclear weapon. If we didn't do the B-2 attack a number of months ago, they would have a nuclear weapon. And when crazy people have nuclear weapons, bad things happen. So we're in very good shape now. I want to let you know that, and we will continue forward. But it's a great display of military strength, and I'm very proud to have, with some of the people in the room, both senators and congressmen, we rebuilt, and women, we rebuilt our military during the first term, and we're using it a little bit more than I thought we would have to. Venezuela worked out really great. We have a wonderful relationship with the president and the various representatives, and we're taking out hundreds of millions of barrels of oil, and that goes to our benefit and to Venezuela's benefit. They'll be doing better than they've ever done before, and we will get a big piece of that, and we'll also make life wonderful for the people of Venezuela who have been very, very badly hit. So that's a lot said in a short period of time, but you can witness it for yourself. And now we'll get on to something that I'm very proud of, because it was sort of my idea, like
Very much so.
Build your own power plant. And everybody thought I was kidding. They said, really, you can do that? How would you do that? I said, we'll get you fast permits, and you'll build your own plants, but we're going to discuss it in great detail with the biggest people in the industry and some of our great leaders and senators. And congratulations on the Medal of Honor for your 100-year soldier. You know, 100 years old, 101 to be exact. And Daryl's been fighting that he get the Congressional Medal of Honor for many years, Daryl, right?
Mr. President, I give you all the credit for overcoming the lawyers in the Department of the Navy in a way that I thought was amazing.
Yeah.
And
well,
nobody could have done it but you.
Maybe it'll be a long. We had to get it to him a little bit quickly, but he looks like he's in good shape. He's got some years left, right?
He's planning to come back here for your next Medal of Honor ceremony, and he's also going to be the star at Tailhook this summer if you want to come to Reno.
Well, I congratulate you for that success. That was amazing. He didn't stop. I've known him a long time. He never stops. So congratulations. It's very nice. We're here this afternoon for a historic signing that will help keep down utility bills very, very substantially, and electricity prices for millions of Americans, and in many cases for a lot of people that don't really understand why they're going up, but they're not going to be going up. They're going to be actually going down. Today we follow through on an announcement I made in my State of the Union address last week, as America's largest tech companies officially signed the Ratepayer Protection Pledge. It's a big deal. It's going to have a tremendous impact on electricity costs. We're bringing down all of the costs. We're having this little interlude to do what we have to do, because we had it going. But these interludes are very important, especially this one. But the economy has never been like this. We broke 50,000 on the Dow. People thought we wouldn't do that within the first 4 years. We did it in the first year, and we brought 7 on the S&P, 7,000. On the S&P, they said that's even less likely to happen, and we did that too, all within the first year. Under this new agreement, big tech companies are committing to fully cover the cost of increased electricity production required for AI data centers, and that would be prices for American communities will not go up, but in many cases will actually come down, and very substantially. Because, you know, the data centers, and you people are so big, you're the biggest in the world, but they've developed a little bit of a bad public. They need some PR help, because people think that if a data center goes in, their electricity prices are going to go up, and that's not happening. It's not going to happen. And for the areas where it did happen, it won't happen anymore because they never had this alternative. It's actually going to mean the prices come down. You're going to see how badly they want. Some centers were rejected by communities for that, and now I think it's going to be just the opposite. This means that the tech companies and the data centers will be able to get the electricity they need, all without driving up electricity costs for consumers. This is a historic win for countless American families and will also make our electricity grid stronger and more resilient than ever before. So that's part of it. It's going to be strengthened up, and they're going to be getting a lot of excess electricity from the data centers where they build their own plants. They're going to be creating their own electricity. We're pleased to be joined today by Speaker Mike Johnson, who's got a difficult job, but he does it as easy as anybody I've ever seen do that job. It's never easy when you have a majority of 2, or sometimes less. I was going to say, sometimes less, but he's amazing. And Energy Secretary Chris Wright, who's worked so hard, and Senators Katie Britt, Bernie Moreno, John Husted. Thank you, everybody. Really great. Thanks, Katie. Representative Darrell Issa and Derek Van Orden. Thank you both. And Derek, thank you. Nice to see you. OSTP Director Michael Kratsios, AI and crypto czar David Sachs, as well as the commissioners of the Federal Energy Regulation and Regulatory Commission, and an audience. In the audience, you have Laura Swett, David Rosner, Lindsay C., and Judy Chang, all very well-known people, especially in this group of geniuses. We have a lot of geniuses here, and a lot of geniuses that are also very strong people representing labor. We love labor. We love these guys. I also want to recognize the industry leaders here to sign the pledge, and this is a pledge that's going to be a very important pledge to the country and to their companies also. They benefit also very substantially, including President of Google, Ruth Porat. That's a good company. That's big stuff. Google, that's, it used to be U.S. Steel and things like that. Now it's Google and other places. President of Meta, Dina Powell, who was with me. Dina Powell was with me for a long time, and I called up Mark and I said, congratulations, that was a good hire. Right? That was a good hire. She's fantastic, and her husband is fantastic. He's a great senator, and he ran in a place called Pennsylvania, and he ran against somebody that was very tough to win. It was very, very tough to win, and he won pretty easily, actually. People were shocked. I wasn't. You and I weren't surprised, were we? But he's a spectacular man. President of Microsoft, Brad Smith. Thank you, Brad. It's good to see you. Microsoft is unbelievable. COO of OpenAI, Brad Lightcap. Brad, where are you, Brad? Brad, you're so young. Look at how young. I think you have to be young in that world, perhaps. Thank you, Brad. CEO of Amazon Web Services, Matt Garman. Matt, thank you, Matt. Very well. Say hello to my friend, right? Doing a good job. CEO of Oracle, Clay Moosquark. Moosquark. Is that fairly good? I don't know. I'm not sure. I usually don't. I just go right over it and I say Moosquark. But how are you? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I give you a hard job. It's a hard name. You did good. You did well for the difficulty of that name.
That's right. I think so. Thank you very much. And Gwen Shortwell, Gwen Shortwell of XAI, another real leader. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And say hello, right, to a special person. The last administration, their allies in Congress gave us the worst inflation in, I say, the history of our country, but they say 48 years. So I'll take either one. It doesn't matter. The press gets very upset when I say in the history of our country. They get very angry about it, actually. They say it was only 48 years. I say, in some ways 48 years sounds worse because it's very specific. but it sounds a little worse. But either way, take either one. And the ruinous energy policies were a big reason why many working families' utility bills increased more than 30% during the Biden administration, the worst administration in the history of our country. That's why on day one, I declared a national energy emergency. We had no choice but to do that, and signed an executive order to dramatically accelerate construction of new energy infrastructure, which we are doing at record numbers. And we're rapidly bringing down those costs, very rapidly. We inherited a mess. I say it all the time. We inherited a total mess. And in many cases, we've fixed it, but we're fixing it. And we'll always be fixing it. We're going to make it better and better and better. Many Americans are still concerned that the massive energy demand from AI data centers could drive up their electricity bills in the future, and we understand that. By 2035, energy demand is expected to more than triple. Can you believe it? A lot of it is AI, and it's also all these big plants that are being built all over the country. They're coming in from Canada and Mexico, from Germany, from Japan, from South Korea. They're all coming here to build cars again. You know, we lost 54% of our car industry because we had presidents that, honestly, on trade and business, they didn't know what the hell they were doing. I could say the same thing for the chip industry. We lost the chip industry, but it's all coming back. You could have stopped it so easy. All you would have had to do is put a charge or a tariff on. If you wanted to leave the United States, that's fine. You can go to Taiwan or anywhere you want. But if you're going to make your product and sell it back in here, you're going to pay 100% or 200 or 300% tariff. And nobody would have ever left. But they missed that opportunity. But it's not going to matter now because it's all coming. They're all coming back. By 2035, energy demand is expected to more than triple. Under the Ratepayer Protection Pledge, we're signing today, the big tech companies are making 5 important commitments to keep utility prices down for American consumers. First, these companies are committing to provide or pay for all power generation and electricity needed for their AI projects, which is massive. And where possible, they'll add capacity to the grid by building new power stations. So they're going to be making their own electricity. They're not going to be taking from the grid, and they will actually probably, based on what I'm seeing, they're building overcapacity, and they'll be able to sell that overcapacity at very low prices into the grid. In addition to that, we're fixing the grid. Now, if we didn't do this, this was, I believe, I don't know, nobody's going to challenge you, won't challenge me. I think this was my idea. I said, wait a minute, we can't, when I first got involved with AI, they said, we will need triple the energy. Think of this, triple the energy of what we have now. Some people said double. I said, whether it's double or triple, that's crazy. And that was just for AI. It is incredible. And when you see the buildings we're talking about, you start to understand it. But unless you saw it, buildings that go for miles, buildings that are so big, buildings that cost $60 billion. I said, you mean $60 million? When I first got involved, they said, we're building a $60 billion building. I said, you mean 60 million? 60 million is a big building. It's not that big, but it's pretty big nowadays. They said, no, sir, we're going to spend 60 billion. But now it's like 100 billion and 150 billion. And the bottom line, it takes electricity like nobody's ever seen before. And I said, well, with an old grid, even if we fix it really well, which we're in the process of doing, you can't take that and double our electricity. They're going to have to build it themselves. And I told Mark, I told Elon, I told people, and nobody believed me. They said, you're going to let us build our own electricity? Because they've been so used to being beaten down and to have people with no ideas how to solve problems, and then the whole thing fails. It's a whole disaster. They said, no, I'm serious. And in one case, they submitted plans, and they didn't do what I told them. And when I called them, I said, why don't you have your plant here? We thought you were kidding. Are you serious? You really? They couldn't believe it. In a good way. They said, it's too good to be true. And I said, no, it's not. And here's the other thing. You'll have your approvals within 2, 3, or 4 weeks. It used to take 20 years to get it prior to rejection. So in other words, you go 20 years prior to rejection. They'd vote. I've known many plants where they've been, I knew people, they started off young. They were young trying to get approvals for a stupid plant, one plant. Their whole life was devoted to getting this plant. And around 22 years, in one case, 22 years later, he got rejected. I said, that's not good. He wasted, let's say, half of his working life on getting an approval, and he didn't get. Now we get it in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. When I came in originally in my first term, we had 2 big LNG plants in Louisiana. They were in the 14th year of getting approvals, and they had just been rejected. And I got involved. They were tremendous plants. They're up now. They're working beautifully. They built the 3rd one. They're magnificent. I mean, if you like pipes, this is a plant. The whole thing is, you look inside, all it is pipes. I've never seen anything quite like it. It's like lying 2 or 3 Empire State Buildings on their side and doing nothing but putting pipes into it. So I didn't know exactly what it represented. All I knew is this is what they needed. So I got involved. The first one I got done in one day. The second one, I was a little bit slower that week, and it took me 1 week. So I got the first one done in one day, got fully approved. And when they called up the head, and I didn't want anything. I don't want anything for myself. I want it for the country. When they called up the head of a company like a Microsoft or like any one of the people in this room, but they called up the heads, they said, no, we got rejected. No, you just got approved. It was 1 day and 1 week, and they were built, and they're in your state, by the way, right? Yes, yes. And they are big. Yes, they are. And they're doing great. Lots of pipes. And there are lots of pipes, right? That's all I noticed. I said, I've never seen anything like that. Anyway, so for these companies committing to provide or pay for all power generation electricity needed for their AI projects, where possible, they will add capacity to the grid. They're going to be adding a lot of capacity, and I think it's going to be really, and I've seen some power plants. I'm actually more interested in the power plant than I am in information. I said, where do you make the money for this? They said, information. I said, okay, that's good. That's got to be a lot of information, though, right? And it's turning out to be true. David, it better be true, because you got a big bet. This country has a big bet on it. But it's incredible what they're doing and what they're coming up with. Second, they'll cover the costs of upgrading existing power delivery infrastructure and their energy demand as it requires further investment. So they'll be upgrading existing power delivery infrastructure. They will, third, negotiate separate rate structures with utilities to clearly and cleanly assign them to the costs of new capacity investments and commit to paying even if they do not end up using all of that electricity. They're going to make a commitment. So we're going to have a situation where you're not going to have increased electric bills for homes that are in the area or even outside of the area. And fourth, they'll invest in the local communities where they build and operate, provide workforce development and jobs for skilled Americans like those with us today. We have great skilled people. Electricians, engineers, HVAC technicians, server and network technicians, power plant workers, plumbers, welders, and many others, all people that I've hired. All my life I've been hiring you guys, and you've done a great job. I built a lot of buildings, a lot of good ones. And finally, they will use their infrastructure to contribute backup power to local grids during times of need. So they're going to have a lot of backup power. We're going to have a lot of excess. Basically, we're building massive amounts of electricity, and you're not paying for it at all. And the companies want to do it because this way they can, otherwise they couldn't build. I mean, the option really was not about cost. It was about there's no way of possibly taking the old grid and doubling it in a matter of months or years. So in short, America's largest and richest tech companies will be funding a colossal expansion of U.S. energy. We'll have, I read where China is building tremendous energy. I know, you got to respect it. But we're building similar amounts. We're building what we need, and we're building it through the private sector. We're building it through great companies. And I've seen some of the plants that these geniuses, they are real geniuses, are showing, and I say, wow, that's really great. You're really doing things in terms of technology with electricity that, frankly, the standard, wonderful power companies probably aren't going to be getting there. Maybe as you build them, they'll be start. But some of the plants that I've seen, Dina, are absolutely unbelievable. So they're going to be producing massive amounts of electricity and energy. The grid, so the American consumers aren't going to have to even think about it. And your electric costs are going to be going down. Now, unfortunately, it'll take a little time to get there. So they'll say, well, you know, I don't know who's going to follow me, but whoever is going to follow me is going to have some big advantage. You know, it happened with Biden where we got a lot of approvals for things, but they take statutorily a year or 2 years. And I got one on medicine that was good, not as good as favored nations, which we just got. That's 80 and 90% drops, okay? Nobody's going to believe it. But I got one on various medicines, and it was good, but it doesn't kick in for 2 years. I said, I hope I win this election because I'm going to get so much credit. And the election was rigged and stolen. And he stood up there one day getting credit. He didn't even know what the hell he was talking about. He got the credit. He was talking about how he did this, and he had no idea what he was talking about, but we were the ones that got it. And I hate that. So this is going to happen again because somebody's going to be getting a lot of credit into the future. But this is really the pretty current future. This is going to go very quickly. This is going to happen almost immediately. The United States is leading the world in AI by a lot. We're leading China. We're leading everybody by a lot. Without this, you wouldn't even, I don't think you could build, Brad, you couldn't build a plant, right? Without this, I don't think you could, you know, you'd have to rely on the grid, and you wouldn't be able to do that. So the United States is leading by a lot. We're leading everybody. And it's not only, you know, other countries are very much into it. They all want it. But we're going to be dominant in this field, which is very important. In crypto, we want to be dominant. We want to be dominant in everything we do. And this agreement will ensure that America can maintain the most advanced AI infrastructure on the planet without American families being forced to pick up the tab. And that's why the early ones, they hook up to the electric utilities and they can't produce the kind of numbers electric-wise that they want, and they end up raising the rates. It's not going to happen anymore, and now it's going to go the opposite way. They'll make a lot of money, and electric rates, we actually think they're not going to stay. I think they're going to actually, Chris, they're going to actually come down. So your electric bills will actually come down. It'll take a little while, but not long. So this new strategy, never tried before in any country, will pave the way for continued American dominance in energy and technology working together. So you're going to have great energy sources because you're going to build them yourself, and if they're not good, you'll make them a little bit bigger and better, right? But again, a lot of people, it took me 6 months to convince people that I was serious about this. And we have a very big key to what we're doing is Lee Zeldin. He's in charge of the Environmental Department and Energy. And the job he's done is incredible, getting you fast approvals. So some of the plants are starting and they're coming in. I say, Lee, 2 weeks for natural gas. Don't worry about wind. Forget it. It's worthless. You don't get approvals for wind. We don't do wind in this because it's a loser. Except for China, they make all the windmills. You know, China makes all the windmills. The only problem is they don't have wind farms. You ever think somebody's going to have to look at that? How many wind farms have you seen lately in China? They make the windmills. They sell them to the suckers over in Europe. Europe is buying them by the thousands. And I told them for 3 years, this is not going to work out well. And now they're saying I was right. But we are, I say, natural gas, clean, beautiful coal. You know, we don't ever say in the Trump administration you're not allowed to use the word coal unless you precede it by saying clean, beautiful. And Chris made a beautiful speech about 3 weeks ago. And he took me very, very seriously. And every time it was about coal. And every time he mentioned coal, it'd say, clean, beautiful coal, clean, beautiful coal, clean, beautiful. I said, Chris, easy. It sort of stepped in the speech a little bit. It was a little much, but we got the point across. That coal is clean and beautiful. Well, look, it's so many of the nations that are working are using coal, and you can do things with coal today that are incredible in terms of the environment and in terms of cleanliness. But I said 2 weeks for oil and gas, coal, and for nuclear power plant, maybe take 2 or 3 weeks. You can add on an extra week. But Lee Zeldin has done an amazing job in getting you all of the permits that you need, because normally that would take many, many years, and they're already building the plants. They're being built all over the country, and they are incredible. So with that, I'll introduce Chris Wright, who's we were lucky to get him. Doug Burgum convinced me he was the best guy. I wanted Doug Burgum for his position, and because I'm very impressed with Doug, he's doing a fantastic job. He said, there's somebody that's better than me on energy. I said, a guy named Chris Wright. He said, biggest in the industry, he's the smartest, he's the best. I say, really, he's better than you? And Doug has a very big ego, so for him to say that was not easy. But I met Chris, and it was sort of love at first sight. He has done some job, and so has Doug. We gave him interior where they have all the oil, and we gave him energy where they take it, right? So we sort of did a friendly merger without going through Congress, because if we went through Congress, it would never get done unless the Speaker wanted to get it done, in which case it would be all right. So, Chris, you could say a few words first?
You bet. First of all, thank you all for being here today. The reason we're here and the things that are going to happen are because of the people in this room. I want to thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership. Very early on, I mean, first week, I'm in my new job. I haven't had a boss in 40 years, and I'm in the Oval Office adjusting to this, and the President says to me two things very clearly. He says, number one, we have to lead in AI. We have to lead. This is a transformative technology. America must lead in AI, and the old energy policies that were going on would not lead in AI. We need to lead in AI. Number two, the government's a bureaucracy. It's always in the way of things. It's been in the way of AI. We've got to run the government like a business. The businesses who want to invest are our partners, and get them here right away, and we've got to work with those partners. And boy, we have 7 incredible leaders in the room today. We're going to win in AI, and we're going to stop the rise in electricity prices because of the 7 leaders that are sitting around this table. The President said you're going to work with them like business leaders. Ultimately, this is not a negotiation where one side wins and one side loses. We have the same interests. The interest of the businesses is to be embraced by the communities so they can build and develop data centers in their communities. Those data centers that are developed there are going to bring jobs and opportunities for people. They're going to have us lead in artificial intelligence, critical for our economy, critical for our national defense, and critical for our security. The nation that leads in AI will be the military superpower. That has been and must remain the United States of America. But this is a pivot, and this is a transformation, and it's the bold leadership of the President and the bold long-term vision of the business leaders that I am very proud to call partners and friends around this table that have invested that money, that have developed those technologies, that are willing to invest those dollars, and are also willing to fix the biggest problem. We had 30% electricity price rises during the Biden administration, and we shrunk our amount of available dispatchable electricity. That is a train wreck waiting to happen, and the President recognized from the start, we have to lead in AI, and we have to stop electricity price rise, and those are not in contradiction. These companies are smart, they're powerful, they're strong, they can build power, partner with them. And that's exactly, all of them embraced it, all of them have spent money to these noble causes. And as we heard, a number of states that have partnered with the people on this table have announced multi-year rate freezes. Indiana's the leader now, and the first one filing for a rate reduction. But it is the partnership of these companies and a business focused on government, focused on the American people, that is the transformation. But I could not be more proud to be here. I've got to thank also our FERC commissioners that are here. FERC is a noble regulatory agency that just got bureaucratic and lived in a different time and a different age. We need to make things happen fast.
Could they stand up?
Yes, can all the FERC commissioners stand up?
Because, you know, they're the most powerful people in the country. And I have had more people say, do you know FERC? I said, do I know FERC? What about FERC? And I learned so much about you, and you are the most powerful people in the country. So we want to be very nice to you. Please get us approvals. Please get us those approvals, okay? Thank you all very much. Thank you.
The FERC team has worked hard, smartly, and practically to enable the revolution that's going to happen. America leading in AI and stopping the price rises. Thank you all so much. And boy, one of the other things I'm crazy lucky about is to work as a partner with a guy who has the hardest job in the world and does it with a smile, does it with charm, and does it with grace. Speaker Mike Johnson.
Well, thanks so much, Mr. Secretary. Thanks to you all. It's a great honor to be here with the leaders of tech and industry, the FERC commissioners. They are so very important, and all these folks who help all this happen. Look, only President Trump has the gravitas to be able to assemble the leaders of all these great companies in one room, and also to conceive of an idea like the Ratepayer Protection Pledge. This is an idea whose time has come. I think it's going to be so well received around the country because, let's be honest about it, there are concerns that people have had. There's a lot of misinformation out there, Mr. Secretary, about the rise in energy demand and what that's going to mean for our communities. So it is so meaningful to have leaders, the titans, to come in and say, everybody be calm. This is going to be great. It's actually going to be better going forward. Not only is America going to stay on top and lead and be the strong superpower that we are, we're going to continue to lead on AI. We're going to continue to make the communities better. I'm in the state of Louisiana. A lot of this is happening in Louisiana, Mr. President. It's not just a bunch of beautiful pipes. It's also data centers. Meta's doing a big one. And, of course, Amazon's working in Louisiana and Stack and so many of the other companies. And our communities are so grateful to have that investment, and also grateful because they're coming in as great corporate partners, community partners, and they're acting responsibly. They're helping to build out the energy grid, and they're making life better, not just with good paying jobs. They're actually making life better in these communities and in our states. And so we're so grateful for that. I like what you said a moment ago. This is a win-win-win across the board. You have everybody who's come to the table in good faith under the leadership of this extraordinary president to make this happen for the country. It's at the perfect time. Trust is not given by communities and local stakeholders. It's built over time. And I think this pledge is a huge part of building that important foundation for the future. America's back, Mr. President. I'm so excited about that. Excited to be a part of this. Thanks so much for letting us be it. Yeah.
I think we'll go with John. Is that all right? John Houston?
Thank you, Mr. President. In places like Ohio, this is a very, very big deal. I know that you know well that if we want to have economic dominance and national security dominance, we need to have technological dominance. And AI and data centers are a big piece of that. And I know that the American people want to win. They want to win this just like you do. We want to be superior to our challengers like China. We want to have AI dominance because that helps give our military, our manufacturing, everybody across the country needs AI dominance if America wants to win. And I know that you're the leader of the America First agenda. You want America to win, but so do the people in places like Ohio, but they're concerned about energy prices, right? They know that they like those folks out there, the construction trades that build these, the plumbers, pipe fitters, HVAC, electricians, the people that build the power plants, the laborers, the boilermakers. Like, these are working people in places like Ohio that do amazing work to build the data centers, to build the power plants, but people just are worried about their energy prices. And what you're offering today with this roundtable with the Ratepayer Protection Pledge, Mr. President, is great leadership because this solves the problem that people were worried about. And as the data centers build new power plants, it leads to energy stability, affordable, reliable electricity for American ratepayers, helping them win the affordability battle that you're leading on behalf of this great team that you've assembled. And I just want to say thank you for your leadership on this.
Thank you very much, John. And I hear you're doing very well in your race. He's running for a very important seat in a great state that I like a lot. It's always been good to me, and it's going to be good to you, and it has been good to you. So good luck with that. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're going to do good. Michael, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. You have been talking about this issue beginning as early as the campaign. In July, when we released the AI Action Plan, this was a focal point of the speech you gave. Talked about it again at the State of the Union. So this is a culmination of this idea that you've been working on for quite some time. And the key to all of this is that American AI leadership should never come at the cost of hardworking Americans' ability to pay their electricity bills. And frontier AI that all of these great companies work on every day, along with the data centers that underlie them, are going to accelerate scientific discovery. They're going to unlock economic efficiencies. They're going to enable entire new industries to support the prosperity of all Americans. And to continue to lead in AI, these great companies need to make new data centers. We need new fabrication capacity. We need new manufacturing facilities, and we need new power plants to be able to do all of this great work. And today, through this pledge, we are challenging all these companies to think bigger when it comes to data center construction by identifying ways that we can drive down the overall electricity cost, to ultimately strengthen grid resilience, and to create more American jobs in the communities that choose to build all of these data centers. By signing this pledge, all these companies here are making themselves accountable to you, Mr. President, and to the American people as they strengthen their commitment to benefiting the communities in which they build and they operate. We as an administration are using every tool at our disposal to ensure that the U.S. can build and maintain the largest, most powerful, and most advanced AI infrastructure anywhere on the planet. And today we recognize that building the future requires massive amounts of reliable energy. And I'm grateful to you, Mr. President, for acting so decisively to ensure that the growing demands of energy that we have are never passed to the American households. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dina?
Thank you, Mr. President. It's such an honor to be with you today. I also want to thank your outstanding team for partnering with us. You know, it's been remarkable to watch this transformational moment and you positioning America to lead. Our country has had very big transformational movements before, whether it was coming together, World War II, or the Industrial Revolution. But this is different. The next 3 years, in many ways, sir, are the whole game. And those 3 years, while you are president, you have positioned us to win. You have not only made sure that energy dominance is a key to how we will succeed in the compute needs we need, but you've also done something very important. You've made us all know that it's not about the products, it's about the people. And at Meta, we are so proud of the jobs that we are creating, whether it is in Louisiana or in Ohio. So proud that it's not just extraordinary engineers, it is pipe fitters, it is welders, it is electricians. And I'm particularly proud today to announce that partnering with Senator Moreno and Senator Husted, we have launched a pilot in Ohio to train fiber technicians, some who are in this audience actually today, a very important skill set needed to build data centers. This 4-week program is a new curriculum. When you graduate, you have a license to be a fiber technician and a guaranteed job with Meta. We are also extremely proud to sign the Ratepayer Pledge today. Also, in Louisiana, as the speaker just said, we have been able to lower the costs of so many Louisiana payers, energy payers, an estimated $650 million over 15 years. So we are proud to say today that we want to fully cover the cost of the energy that we use in our data centers, create jobs and opportunity, but more than anything, sir, we are really proud that we're going to look back and have had the privilege to work with you and know that America won at such a critical time and that we did it really working with the American worker and so many others. So thank you, sir. Proud to be here with you.
So nice. Thank you very much.
I also want to say, sir, I forgot to say it, you know, it was 10 years ago, way before we were talking about AI, that you said there is honor and dignity in plumbers and in workforce skills training, and you asked Ivanka, as you know, to chair that. 10 years later, we could not have imagined how much we needed all of those jobs and those programs, and you marshaled the entire government to do it. That is having an impact in cities across the country. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Dana. Ruth, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Google is grateful for all that you and your administration are doing to secure America's continued leadership in AI. And to your point, it must be powered by abundant and affordable energy if it is to benefit all Americans. I'm pleased to be here to underscore Google's support for the Ratepayer Protection Pledge. We're committed to assist in all of your work to support American households, American businesses in this exceptional era of innovation. So 4 brief points how we will deliver on this for Americans. First, adding to energy capacity. Consistent with your call to build, bring, or buy energy, we will meaningfully invest across America to bring new energy online, as you have stressed so frequently, to deliver the self-sufficiency that is core to this pledge. In Texas alone, we've contracted to add more than 7,800 megawatts of net new energy generation and capacity to the grid as we grow our data center footprint. And very much to your point, we're committed to continuing to invest to add capacity where we build. And to that end, we will very shortly close on an acquisition of Intersect Power, which is going to enable us to build data centers right next to those new additional power generation capabilities where possible. Second, to protect American ratepayers, we're committed not only to pay for 100% of the energy we use, but very importantly, the infrastructure to support that growth, whether or not we end up using that energy. And I think one example that brings that to life, I recently had the privilege of being in Arkansas with Governor Sanders, and our energy partner there, Entergy, announced that Google's investment covers the full energy costs associated with powering our data center, which contributes more than $1 billion back to Arkansas customers to reduce their electricity costs. I think this is precisely what you were saying we need to do more of, and we're committed to doing that. Third, I get very excited about the topic of workforce development, very much to your point, and the important topic of job creation. Every one job that we create in a Google data center gives rise to an additional 9 jobs in the communities in which we are building that data center. Those are high-skilled construction jobs, electrician jobs, represented by so many of the amazing people here today. It's also jobs across the community, in schools, in restaurants, with small businesses. And we announced, in fact, last week that we're providing free AI professional training for all small businesses across America. And given the clear need for electrical workers in America, we're particularly proud of the work we've led to create an electrician training program. And we're committed to train 100,000 electrical workers and 30,000 new apprentices across the country. On top of that, we're excited about significantly growing these programs. We've heard the pledge. Finally, Mr. President, as you said, the American grid needs to be more resilient, and so we're investing here as well. 2 quick things. We pioneered demand response with data centers, so we, with technology, will move workloads out of the way during extreme weather events to make room for the community. And second, we're applying AI itself to the grid to increase capacity in the grid. So again, I want to thank you. I want to thank you all for convening us. The benefits from AI, responsibly delivered, are immense for America's businesses, for America's communities, and for its citizens. Thank you again for your leadership on this very important point.
Thank you very much. Doing a great job.
Thank you, sir.
Gwen?
Mr. President, I want to thank you for your... Thank you. I want to thank you for your leadership. Because of your work on this issue, I'm confident that we will win the race with AI with China and succeed in delivering inexpensive, abundant electricity for the American people. As you know, XAI builds huge supercomputers and data centers, and we build them fast. Currently, we're building one on the Tennessee-Mississippi state line. As part of today's commitment, we will take extensive additional steps to continue to reduce costs of electricity for our neighbors. Mr. President, we want to be on your team to deliver a big win for the American people. XAI will therefore commit to develop 1.2 gigawatts of power as our supercomputer's primary power source, and that will be for every additional data center as well. We will expand what is already the largest global megapack power installation in the world. The installation will provide enough backup power to power the city of Memphis, and more than sufficient energy to power the town of South Haven, Mississippi, where the data center resides. We will build new substations and invest in electrical infrastructure to provide stability to the area's grid. We will build state-of-the-art, we haven't talked about that yet, but this is actually quite important. We will build state-of-the-art water recycling plants that will protect approximately 4.7 billion gallons of water in the Memphis aquifer each year. And we will employ thousands of American workers from around the city of Memphis on both sides of the Tennessee-Mississippi border. We will also commit to deploying our AI technology to make people's lives better, creating a period of abundance where electricity becomes cheaper and people have access to the best goods and services humankind has ever seen. Finally, Mr. President, we commit to take these efforts into orbit. We are currently designing orbital data centers powered by the nuclear reactor in the sky. Launching supercomputers into space will mean even more energy on Earth, as all the power plants that we're building now and power sources we've built will be available to the communities instead of the data centers. I've been in the space industry for nearly 40 years, sir, and I have never seen things move more quickly than under your administration, so thank you for that. Mr. President, you've been strong and clear about building AI that benefits Americans and benefits American values, including demanding that AI is consistent with American values. In July 2025, you signed an executive order directing agency heads to support only those AI models that prioritize truth-seeking and are ideologically neutral. We fully support that order, and we're fully on board with the ratepayer protection pledge, and I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for your commitment.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Would anybody like to say something? We're finished with the official speakers, but we have the most important people in the room, and great people, political and otherwise. Would anyone have anything? Please, Darrell.
Perhaps as the California representative here, I can tell you how excited I am about your proposals. First of all of you have major presence in California. And not long ago, I visited the largest site of one that's not here today, Apple. It's in Reno, Nevada, Mr. President. It is 1,700 acres. It goes on, as you said, forever with buildings. It is doing a great job. It is one of dozens. Most of you also have centers being put up in that same neighborhood just outside my state of California. The reason they're there is the availability of power. And the story I just wanted to briefly say that says a lot about the current state versus where you're putting it with the help of industry. They have what you would call huge, beautiful power plants, one after another that they have. They built them for backup because in Nevada they were able to get all the power they wanted, but they built in resilience there. They've only had to run them extensively when California calls and says we're having a blackout. Would you please turn on your power generators so we don't go dark in San Jose, miles away? That said so much to me about the responsibility of these companies already in the past building backup power, but also the need to have the resilience that these plants will create as a result of your work. And they won't be diesel plants, they'll be clean burning plants, they won't be temporary or backup, they'll be positive. Lastly, my state has invested in solar, so much so that we have it to burn during the day. Literally, we burn it. We don't know what to do with it. The ability of these power plants to take solar when it's in excess and then provide that resilience 24/7, all as a result of your leadership. And so, as someone who is from a state that may build less of them, but needs them more than any other state, I want to thank you for what you're doing, because these companies now can be empowered to do a lot more than what they did so far on the edge of California to help California be part of winning the AI race.
Thank you very much. We'll go very quickly. David, please.
Thank you, sir. As I think all of you know here, we have an AI boom going on. We also have a construction boom going on. Just the leading companies in the U.S. are investing $650 billion this year building out this infrastructure. That's a 2% tailwind to GDP, and that is leading to job increases for construction workers and huge wage increases for construction workers like the fellows we got right up here. So this is a very important boom to sustain, and thanks to your leadership, Mr. President, we're doing that, and we're protecting residential ratepayers, making sure that their electricity prices will not go up. That's the combination we need. And I just want to contrast it, if I may, with the approach of Democrats like Bernie Sanders. Their approach is just to ban. They just want to ban the data centers. So they want to stop the economic growth. They want to stop the wage increases for blue collars. They want to stop the construction. They want to just stop progress. That's not the answer. There's a much better answer. You have found it, sir. And I just want to vouch for the fact that in one of our very first meetings, you did say that you wanted to make our AI companies into energy companies. So that was true. And I remember thinking, that's a really good idea. The president knows more about AI than I do. So this is thanks to your leadership, we're here today. And I know this is something that you've been championing for a very long time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Katie, thank you.
Yes, Mr. President, so this is something that we've not only just talked about, obviously, on the national stage, but we've been talking about and wrestling with in Alabama as well. Look, we understand the need to win the AI race, and you have made sure that America is put first in every category, and that means that we dominate there, and we do it in a way, though, that helps everyday Americans. So when we're looking at their safety and security and what that will ultimately prevail there, we don't want to do it at the expense of ratepayers. And you, once again, have taken an incredibly complex problem that everybody wants to talk about, and you actually found a solution. You found a win-win. We're not only going to win the AI race as a result of what you're doing today, but you have said to every American, to every Alabamian, I see you. And we're going to make sure that your energy cost not only does not go up as a result, but you even said today with the added capacity that it's actually going to go down. In addition to all of that, just want to say thank you to you for being willing to be good community partners. That's what makes all of this work. So the communities that you will ultimately reside in, you are saying we want to build you up in every sense of the word, giving you greater opportunity as a result of this pledge today. So, Mr. President, thank you for making sure that Americans were put first, and that this progress is not at their expense, but is rather at to their benefit.
Yep, that's right. Very quickly, Derek.
Mr. President, I have to tell you something. You're the only person in the world that could put together this coalition. You are the only person in the world. I hope the American people understand what we're talking about here today. You're meshing high tech with the hammer. You're putting these guys with the hard hats with the 100-pound brain nerds, and that's gonna be the future. Sorry, I love you guys. And so, Mr. President, the thing that the American people need to understand is that you're not thinking about an election cycle. You're thinking about the next generation. And what you're doing today by having this coalition of people is making sure that the future generations, our children, are not going to have to be concerned about losing a war. And that means so much, especially in this time now. If people really take a step back and appreciate this is actual visionary leadership, and it's going to take care long before or long after we're all gone, sir. Your efforts today are going to make America great into the foreseeable future. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Derek. You're doing a great job. Bernie, I think you're okay. You want to say something really fast, Bernie?
Thank you.
He gets my vote. He gets my vote. I have to go back and look at the war. You know, we have a lot of things happening. Thank you, Bernie. You're doing a great job. Please. This is Will Scharf. Go ahead, Will. You have anything to say?
I think it's been pretty comprehensively covered by all the speakers you've had today, sir, but you're going to be signing a proclamation announcing the Ratepayer Protection Pledge. This is going to ensure American AI dominance in the years ahead, while also ensuring that American ratepayers, ordinary Americans paying their electric bills, aren't paying anything more. And along with the proclamation that you're signing, each of the CEOs and industry representatives that we have present here will be signing an actual copy of the Ratepayer Protection Pledge, committing them to your vision for this industry going forward.
Pretty good, right?
And let me say to the press, thank you so much for being here. It was fantastic. After the pledges are signed, if we can have you move out of the room as quickly as you can so we can do a little bit of business. But thank you for being here at this thing. And as you heard, the summary of the Trump agenda is lower prices, higher wages.
Okay, you got it done. That's a good one. It's a good one, Ingrid. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, press.
And you were just watching President Trump hosting a roundtable on the Ratepayer Protection Pledge. And before going into that, President Trump started off the meeting with the war in Iran. President Trump saying that Iran would have had a nuclear weapon in 2 weeks if not for Midnight Hammer. He also commented on the Iran nuclear deal. He said it would have given Iran a nuclear weapon. That was during the Obama administration. And President Trump saying this operation, something incredible unfolding before our eyes. All the Iranian leaders are being eliminated, and those who want to become Iranian leader for the Iranian regime. So on to the commitment, the Ratepayer Protection Pledge. So this is a commitment by major technology companies, especially big players like we saw, Microsoft, Google, Meta, and such, to prevent increases in residential and small business electricity bills that could result from growing power demand. So tech companies are agreeing to cover the cost of additional electricity their AI-heavy data centers require, rather than letting the consumer pay those costs, rather than passing those costs onto everyday utility customers. Okay, we're moving on now. U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran may be striking at the heart of the Chinese Communist Party's power. It's a move that's choking off Beijing's vital oil lifeline. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has more details.
President Trump's latest offensive against Iran is delivering a massive economic hit to America's top adversary, the Chinese Communist Party.
President Trump is going after the Chinese, and he's not doing it directly, but he is doing it indirectly, and he's cutting off their sources of support.
Over 2 months, the administration's toppled leaders in Iran and Venezuela, both key oil suppliers to Beijing. Now this move could force Beijing to scramble for pricier alternatives.
90% of Iran's exported oil goes to China. The bigger target is actually communist China, which is increasingly in a box, is going to have to start buying its oil, the huge percentage of its oil, on the open market at full price.
Last year, a staggering 17% of China's crude oil imports came from these sanctioned regimes, with Iran alone shipping 520 million barrels to the CCP. As tensions escalate, ships are dodging the Strait of Hormuz, a choke point for half of China's oil imports from the Gulf. Such a move could even impact China's ambitions, like taking over Taiwan.
40% of China's oil goes through the Strait of Hormuz. That's why when the Iranians were saying they were going to shut it, the Chinese were saying, no, we want it to be open. So he now has massive leverage over China. A move on Taiwan would be disastrous for Beijing.
Many experts warn that the CCP's support for Iran's terror regime is backfiring.
And I hope that President Trump remembers that the Chinese supplied advanced weapons to Iran. And if those weapons were used to kill Americans, we've lost 6 service members already, then I don't think President Trump should be going to China.
But with the upcoming meeting in April between President Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping, this oil squeeze exposes the CCP's vulnerabilities. The pressure on Beijing mounts, and many see it as whittling away the regime that threatens freedom worldwide. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Jack Bradley, NTD News.
The White House saying that U.S. Will have complete control over Iranian airspace within the next few hours. That's as it says the Iranian regime's retaliatory strikes are weakening by the day. NTD's Washington correspondent Mari Otsu at the White House with more.
Yeah, that's right. And the White House is also saying that the Iranian regime is being, quote, absolutely crushed. Press Secretary Leavitt announcing that at the top of her briefing, while also saying that 47 years of the U.S., quote, enabling and tolerating the terrorist regime are over. Press Secretary Leavitt is also laying out President Trump's 4 objectives for Operation Epic Fury. Take a look.
The president has said repeatedly that the objectives of Operation Epic Fury are the 4 military objectives that I laid out for you previously, to destroy Iran's navy, to destroy their ballistic missile capacity, to ensure their proxies in the region can no longer harm Americans, and to also ensure that they can never obtain a nuclear weapon. As for what comes next for Iran, the president has said, of course, it's a good thing for the United States to want freedom for the Iranian people, and ultimately we hope that freedom rests in their hands.
The White House also going more into the reasoning behind President Trump's decision to strike when he did, saying that negotiations with the Iranian regime, they lied, quote, delayed, and tried to string the U.S. along in order to continue building up their ballistic missile system and other deadly weaponry. Press Secretary Leavitt also is saying that there's been a significant reduction in the strikes since day one, which is a sign that the Iranian regime is weakening by the day. Take a look.
The Iranian rogue regime, their retaliatory strikes against the United States and the threat reduction has reduced significantly. If you look at the Iranian ballistic missile launches, they're down 86% from day one levels. So while the United States military continues to increase its complete dominance over this rogue regime, they are weakening day by day.
Meanwhile, the White House is extending its prayers and condolences to the now 6 U.S. service members killed in the operation. Press Secretary Leavitt today announcing that President Trump will be attending their dignified transfer. Don, back to you.
Okay. And that was Mario Otsu reporting from the White House. President Trump saying just now something amazing is unfolding before our eyes amid Operation Epic Fury entering its 5th day now. Joining us to discuss is Grant Newsroom, retired U.S. Marine Colonel and former U.S. diplomat, senior fellow at the Center for Security Policy, and Brian Leib, a foreign policy analyst and former executive director at Iranian Americans for Liberty. So first of all, welcome both. Thank you for joining us. So Brian, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth saying today that the leader of an Iranian unit who allegedly made an assassination attempt on President Trump has been hunted down and killed. Is the issue of Iran attempting to assassinate the president more evidence, in your view, of it being an imminent threat against the U.S.?
First of all, Don, it's good to be with you and with the audience here at NTD again. There were enormous amounts of imminent threats, not just towards the president of the United States, but to the American people. This Islamic Republic of Iran, the regime that's been running this country for years, has continued to enrich uraniums to levels that only you would do if you're interested in making nuclear bombs. Now we know that Special Envoy Witkoff said that during the latest round of diplomatic talks that the Iranians started off at the negotiating table telling him and Jared Kushner that they had enough uranium for 12 nuclear bombs. So this has been the goal of this regime, I think, from day one for the last 40 plus years. So there's been an enormous amount of imminent threats to the homeland here in America and to Americans all over the world.
So Grant, do you agree with what Brian said, him listing a number of imminent threats against the U.S.? Is there anything for you to add to that list?
Sure. It goes back 47 years to the early 80s in Lebanon when 241 Marines were killed. The U.S. Embassy was blown up. CIA Station Chief Bill Buckley was tortured to death, and the Iranians sent videos of it so the Americans could watch it. And then you just go down the list. It has been Iranian proxies and Iranian agents killing Americans for that entire time. The aid they gave to the insurgents in Iraq, that killed and maimed hundreds of Americans, probably more than that. It's just nonstop. They have been at war with us for that long. And when it comes to their capabilities, just play this out a little bit. And once they get their delivery systems down, as they're very close to doing, get their nuclear weapons in place, and that has been their aim. And we don't quite know how close they are to it, but probably pretty close. At that point, they start to have the ability to hit the United States, hit our territory. And everything becomes completely different. But we tend to think, well, if they don't have it today, well, there's no imminent threat. Well, just, use some common sense and look out, as I said, a few years, and you'll see that this is a very, I would note is for the Iranians to have put all of their top leaders into one room, knowing that the Israelis and the Americans have very good intelligence, suggests that they might have been up to something that was not at all very good, and it was big. So there's empirical evidence, and then just the aspect of just common sense, and suggest that Iran is an imminent, immediate threat to the United States.
All right, so Brian, the U.S. sank an Iranian ship by torpedo, and this is the first since World War II. We also saw the first American kamikaze drone strikes in this conflict. So, Brian, is the U.S. sending a message here to adversaries about the scope and capabilities of the U.S. military?
First of all, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool that we were able to take out one of their ships using a torpedo for the first time in a long time. But yeah, I mean the capabilities of the U.S. military are totally unmatched. I think we probably have a lot of other things up our sleeves in terms of dialing things up, over the next couple days and maybe a week or so. But listen, everyone knows that the United States military has an enormous amount of capabilities and wherewithal, and I think it's only going to continue growing here over the next couple days.
Okay, Grant, is there a message here that the U.S. is sending, and our adversaries receiving that message?
Oh, I think the message is pretty clear just from our activities. And considering that the Iranian air defenses, for example, were of Chinese and Russian origins, and it appears that the Americans and the Israelis have pretty much neutralized them. The Russians and the Chinese aren't looking like they produce the best stuff, but anyone who relies on Russian, Chinese hardware must be wondering if it's really all that good. So there is a message being sent. Also, there's a lot of will that's being demonstrated by the Trump administration to actually go to war against Iran like this, that nobody has ever done. No president's ever done it. That is something that the Chinese do look at, and it's the will of their intended victims. And we've shown a lot of it in the last few months, and that is something that gets noticed as well, besides the sheer professionalism of the U.S. forces. To be able to operate over Iran without losing aircraft like this, that's something I think a lot of people didn't expect, but it's quite something to see.
So, Brian, let me get your comments on this. The White House press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, saying today that she understood that Spain would now cooperate with the U.S. military. And then later, Spain's foreign minister refuted her statement. Can you just give us your comments on this? Where is this going?
Where this is going is the current makeup of the Spanish government is low-key pro-Islamic Republic of Iran and very anti-Trump and anti-America. There's a couple other governments that are similar like this throughout Europe, but this is what Spain is doing. We saw at the very outset, or I should say beginning of these attacks, with the British saying that they weren't going to let us utilize their air bases where we had planes stationed. So everyone's trying to flex a little bit here, and we should be taking notice of that. The countries that are not standing with the United States and with Israel right now are drawing a very clear line in the sand that instead of standing with the good guys, they're standing with the bad guys. They're standing with the evil regime in Tehran, and we should all just be paying notice of that. But I mean, how does that affect the U.S. and Israel's operational capacity? I don't think it's going to affect us quite a bit. We've seen the overwhelming success here over the last couple days. So Spain flexing their muscles on us a little bit here is nothing more than probably some diplomacy, and the Spanish trying to score some points back at home, with their electorate. It's not going to affect what we're doing in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, understood. Now, Grant, if I could get you to address some concerns here. Some say more should have been done to warn American citizens to avoid travel to and in Iran. So with that being said, I should also mention that there were, in fact, travel advisories in place to tell people not to travel there. So just in your view, how realistic or feasible is it that more warnings could have been done without alerting the Iranian regime or of the plans to attack?
Oh, I think the U.S. government gave all the warnings necessary. I think one would have to be really pretty dense not to realize that it was a pretty dangerous place to go to. I think these criticisms are unfounded, and the State Department did their job to make it clear that you really don't want to go to this place. I think someone who did would, I'm not sure they would be at the highest end of the sort of the IQ spectrum.
All right, Brian.
I mean, listen. He makes such a good point. I mean, what American was traveling to Iran. I mean, there were no Americans that were traveling to Iran. And I thought it was interesting when we put out the notice, telling all Americans to get out of Iran. There were no Americans in Iran in the first place. So I thought it was pretty interesting. And I think that the Trump administration has actually done a pretty amazing job with messaging. You see the Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and the Joint Chiefs Chairman that have been out in front of this in the morning, educating the American people, telling us what they've been doing. So I think they've been pitch perfect on all of this, to be honest.
And even for those who are in the Middle East, the administration right now are making every effort to try to get them out, right? Secretary of State Marco Rubio giving out the number that they should contact, the website they should go to. So efforts are being done for even those who are currently within the region. But Brian, I also wanted to get your comments on the level of support that you're seeing. What are the polling numbers telling us? What do you see in terms of support about Republicans for Trump's actions on Iran?
I think the polling numbers are really kind of inconsequential at this point in time, if I'm being honest with you. We're in the middle of an active combat operation trying to take out the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism and all of their tentacles. And I think the American people are going to be very proud of President Trump, are going to be very happy with what he's done. Certainly, it's been horrible that we've lost any of our American service members so far. God willing, we don't have any more losses like that. Likely, we probably will, unfortunately. But I think the American people understand what peace through strength means. They understand that sometimes you've got to take the fight to the doorstep of your adversaries. And I think President Trump has been very clear about this, Don. We're not going to be putting boots on the ground. At the end of the day, that's going to be up to the Iranian people to effect the ultimate regime change. What we and our Israeli partner and ally are doing right now is laying that groundwork with what we're doing in the air and at sea right now. So I think when the dust settles with this, the American people are going to be very proud of our president, very, very proud of our military for doing what was right and for standing on the right side of history.
So Grant, according to a CBS News poll, 76% of Americans support U.S. military action against Iran if the conflict only lasts a few days or weeks. Now, Brian is saying that poll numbers are not the end-all, be-all. But, Colonel, to you, what are the actual factors for whether or not the American people support U.S. military action or not?
Well, it's going to come down to things like casualties, how long it takes, and how much success it looks like it's happening. And that's a little hard to calculate. But that's just the nature of armed conflict. And the fact this has only been going on 4 days and people are already fretting to make you wonder how sort of our parents' and grandparents' generations actually sort of withstood the casualties and the tragedy of World War II. So 4 days, this is just getting started. But it does depend on, if it looks like it's going to be successful, what the cost is. That's the case with every war.
Now, Brian,
but one would think that a little patience is in order here.
Okay, now, Brian, I want you to respond to some concerns now. There's a clip that I brought with me from Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt talking about the president's priorities.
SAVE Act is absolutely still a priority for this president and the administration. The focus, of course, of much of the president's time right now is on ensuring the success of Operation Epic Fury, but the president can walk and chew gum at the same time, and he's very much continuing to focus on the issues that matter here at home for the American people, including the passage of the SAVE Act, including on bringing down the cost of living, which is why you'll see the...
So, Brian, a criticism that the Trump administration is trying to confront here is that should it focus on America first and issues at home as a priority first rather than the conflict? The press secretary here is just saying that the president can walk and chew gum at the same time. What is your response to this argument? Does doing one mean you can't do the other?
I was smiling when I heard her say that, because in my head I was going to say to you on the other side, we're the United States of America. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. So it's exactly correct. I mean, we have the capabilities to win this combat operation overseas while also making sure that we're advancing the agenda here domestically, and also keeping the American people safe. The FBI, DHS, other apparatuses here in the United States are laser focused on the possibility of any kind of sleeper cells or any kind of additional terrorist attacks on U.S. soil. So I think that we're laser focused on protecting the American people here on the homeland and also abroad. And just to say it again, we are the United States of America. We can walk and chew gum at the same time.
So, Grant, your comments on this. Does the operation on Iran mean the U.S. is not focusing on issues at home?
Oh, it shouldn't. And if there's ever been a president who was able to do about 12 things at once, it's President Trump. And it is amazing just how he manages this. But there's no reason why it should be impossible to do domestic matters and overseas matters, foreign affairs. There's simply no reason at all. We have the resources, we have the people, we have the money. You often hear, well, we don't have bandwidth. Well, maybe some other countries, but not the United States. So we have the resources, it just takes the will. And if there was ever a president who it's hard to keep up with, it's President Trump.
And I think the press conference just now, the roundtable before this interview speaks for itself, right? President Trump is making sure that consumers' electricity prices does not increase while the operation is going on. So let's leave it there for today. Thank you both for your time. It's been a pleasure to speak with both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
And the U.S. is increasing its attacks on the leftover Iranian regime. The Pentagon says more fighter jets and more bombers are arriving in the Middle East today. That's as the U.S. is already winning the war against a much weaker enemy. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pasdar has the latest.
America is winning, decisively, devastatingly, and without mercy. And we have only just begun to hunt, dismantle, demoralize, destroy, and defeat their capabilities, just 4 days in.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth giving an update on the Iran war on Wednesday. He's joined by General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Kane says the U.S. is clearly winning the conflict, destroying Iranian capabilities across the board.
Iran's theater ballistic missile shots fired are down 86% from the first day of fighting, with a 23% decrease just in the last 24 hours. And their one-way attack drone shots are down 73% from the opening days.
And the destruction of the Iranian regime is only getting started, with Hegseth saying the U.S. is accelerating, not decelerating.
Iran's capabilities are evaporating by the hour, while American strength grows fiercer, smarter, and utterly dominant. More bombers and more fighters are arriving just today.
According to Hegseth, the U.S. is taking over the skies of Iran.
Starting last night and to be completed in a few days, in under a week, the two most powerful air forces in the world will have complete control of Iranian skies, uncontested airspace.
This progress has allowed CENTCOM to establish localized air superiority across the southern flank of the Iranian coast and penetrate their defenses with overwhelming precision and firepower. We will now begin to expand inland, striking progressively deeper into Iranian territory and creating additional freedom of maneuver for U.S. forces.
And Iran is not only losing in the skies. This video shows an Iranian warship which was sunk by an American submarine in the Indian Ocean.
An American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death. The first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II.
The Navy of Sri Lanka reports recovering 87 bodies from the sea where the Iranian ship sank. The U.S. suggests it will continue to prevent civilian casualties as it attacks Iran's military.
Iran, on the other hand, has been indiscriminate and more imprecise in their attacks. They fired more than 500 ballistic missiles and more than 2,000 drones, striking innocent civilian targets throughout the region.
And Israel also continuing the fight against the leftover Islamic regime. The Jewish state says whoever's the next leader of Iran will be, quote, an unequivocal target for elimination. According to Israel, the goal is to crush the regime's capabilities and create the conditions for the Iranian people to overthrow it. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
And this is just in. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is going to visit U.S. Central Command in Tampa, Florida tomorrow. The Central Command, or CENTCOM, is leading Operation Epic Fury. During the visit, Secretary Hegseth will receive a briefing from CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper on updates regarding the ongoing military campaign. And the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad is strongly advising American citizens in Iraq to leave the country. The advisory comes as the U.S. military continues to carry out strikes against Iran. More news after this break. Stay with us.
Disasters are not a matter of if, but when. And they're happening in communities like ours more often.
Even before disaster strikes, hunger is already a crisis in America. But a disaster tests the very heart of who we are as a community. Food is scarce. But it's in these moments of crisis that our strength shines through. Because as neighbors, we lead the way forward. Please join with Feeding America, and let's be there for families in crisis. Call or go online to givetofeedingamerica.org. Just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Rushes food, water, and urgent supplies into communities just like yours.
They called us immediately and said, what can we do?
It's those partnerships that come together and respond to recovery.
Feeding America works with local food banks to get immediate relief to families as they recover, and we stay for as long as it takes, because disasters don't wait, and neither do we.
They delivered a truckload of food to us to undergird what we had.
Every box of food, every bottle of water shows the power of neighbors being there for each other. When we work together, we are never alone. Call or donate online at givetofeedingamerica.org. Your gift will be so much more than a donation. It will be a filling meal for a child, comfort for a family in crisis.
We need to be there for our community for the next 40 years, just like we were for the last 40 years. And that's helping people build back in a way that is as strong as possible.
Please call or go online and give right now. With your monthly gift, we'll send you this exclusive canvas bag as a reminder of the hope you are delivering.
We're definitely here during the storm, and we're going to be here long after the storm.
But we need your support to continue being there for your community, for you, and for every family facing a crisis. Please call or go online to givetofeedingamerica.org and make your urgent gift today.
August was born 3 pounds, 9.8 ounces. When I first saw him, it was like a whole range of emotions, joy, sadness. There's gonna be obstacles. You're gonna feel like, why is it happening to me? And you're gonna realize you're not the only one. There's no perfect way. Your own way will be the perfect way. You're gonna protect it with all your might. Just seeing him happy, it's just joy, you know? I look through his eyes, I can envision like a whole future with him already. To throw the first football to him, give him ice cream for the first time. Oh man, he can smile now. I'm happy because he's advancing in life, you know, he's growing. Being a young dad, it's not giving up, it's shifting. My life is now devoted to his life.
More than 17,000 Americans have returned from the Middle East amid ongoing U.S. strikes against Iran. The State Department says over 8,500 American citizens arrived at the U.S. yesterday alone.
We're identifying options so that Americans who call and register will be able to move from areas where airspace is closed or to where airspace is open, where they can either board a commercial flight or a charter flight. We're actively, every single second, identifying additional options to help the American people who wish to leave the Middle East.
The State Department said more Americans have left the Middle East for other countries in Europe and Asia. Others are still in transit back to the U.S. The department said it has helped close to 6,500 Americans abroad with security guidance and travel assistance. The U.S. Embassy in Baghdad is strongly advising American citizens in Iraq to leave the country. The advisory comes as the U.S. military continues to carry out strikes against Iran. The alert comes after the State Department ordered non-essential government personnel to leave Iraq on Monday. The embassy urged Americans to remain there while they are until it is safe to depart. In a security alert posted on X, the embassy advised U.S. citizens to ensure that they have an adequate supply of food, water, medicine, and other essentials. According to the embassy, riots, protests, and other demonstrations against the U.S. are ongoing. The embassy added that the south bank of the 14th of July Bridge and Tahrir Square were particular concerns. The embassy in Baghdad and the consulate general in Erbil have suspended all consular services until further notice. China analysts are saying President Trump's involvement in strikes on Iran has a lot to do with the Chinese regime's influence in the region and elsewhere. NTD's Arlene Richards finds out why.
Because we do something in one part of the world, it affects other parts of the world.
Gordon Chang, China commentator and author of Plan Red, China's project to destroy America, says the recent U.S.-Israeli strike on Iran is a message to the Chinese Communist Party. What does a strike on Iran have to do with China? In an interview with Epoch TV's American Thought Leaders, Chang said that Trump's national security strategy hardly mentions China, but China is still top of mind. For instance, Chang said Trump's national security strategy says the U.S. won't allow hostile powers to encroach on America's free trade, like in the South China Sea.
Well, there's only one country that fits that description, that has that ambition and has that power.
He said it's China.
I think it's very important to prevail and make sure that the Iran becomes a free society. We do that. We certainly put China in a very difficult position.
Some reports say Beijing intends to use chaos in the Middle East to distract the United States from the Indo-Pacific, in particular Taiwan. Chang says decisive action in the Middle East can hit Beijing where it hurts. Beijing has been courting governments and military establishments from Central Asia to Southeast Asia to Africa. The regime helped Iran build its massive missile arsenal.
Chinese firms supplied guidance systems, they supplied precision components for really decades.
And despite the heavy sanctions on Iran, the two partners have found ways to bypass the restrictions through loopholes.
A very aggressive Iran is a very useful Iran.
Zineb Riboa, a research fellow at the Hudson Institute, told CBS on Tuesday that the regime likes to play as the mediator and they likely will not intervene in the strikes on Iran.
They have been, in fact, very conflicted about what type of messaging they would send. So I think that they made the calculus that the United States would never intervene to really make Iran less aggressive.
It may have all started last May when Trump met with leaders of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates.
And what we have witnessed since then is the further reduction of Russian and Chinese influence there.
Arlene Richards, NTD News.
With a portion of the DHS shut down, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem gets asked about the security, cybersecurity, and infrastructure attack risk from Iran. Jason Blair reports.
I trod on my glasses yesterday, and I had to pay up front for a new pair that I can't even pick up for another 10 days. So I looked for another way, and I found Select Specs. I ordered online. My new glasses just arrived this morning, and I can pay over the next few weeks. This is the way to buy glasses.
See now, pay later with Select Specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options. Only at selectspecs.com.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. You may know me from my many years on television. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I felt this slight pressure in my chest, just slight. I thought, oh, it's nothing, it'll go away. I didn't get it. I did not get it. But a few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. It felt like an elephant pressing on my chest. I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I was rushed into surgery where I received 2 stents in my arteries. Stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough. Get the next person trained in CPR, the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. I can enjoy life with my children, my grandchildren, and my friends. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, and your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did.
Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org. Become a monthly donor during February Heart Month, and your first month's gift will be matched.
Thank you.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed.
With a portion of the DHS shut down, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem gets asked about the cybersecurity and infrastructure attack risk from Iran. NTD correspondent Jason Blair reports.
House lawmakers questioned Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem for her second day on Capitol Hill. The DHS is in its third week of a shutdown due to a lack of funding agreement in Congress. The U.S. is less than a week into a war with Iran. Representative Laurel Lee was concerned about the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which operates under the DHS, and threats from Iran.
Do you expect that Iran and its cyber proxies may actually attempt retaliatory cyber actions against the United States and its infrastructure?
Yes, and they do. They do on a regular basis.
Congressman Brad Knott asked Noem about how illegal immigration has affected wages for some U.S. workers.
What about wages for American workers?
They steal wages out of pockets. In fact, one of the most compelling stories, if he could ever get the chance to tell it, is Marcus's. He was a truck driver for years. When he worked for that company, he was paid 70 cents a mile. He said now they pay their drivers 40 to 45 cents a mile because they're all illegal aliens.
Congressman Lou Correa asked Noem about some missed ICE detainer pickups he says a sheriff asked him about.
I have a report here from my Orange County sheriff, Orange County, California, sanctuary law state. 323 referred to ICE in 2025. 52 of them not picked up. Need to work on that, Madam Secretary.
I will, sir. If that is the case, we will fix that.
Committee Chairman Jim Jordan says about 1/3 of the country doesn't honor ICE detainer requests.
How many times last year, 2025, were your detainers not honored?
17,864 detainers were declined.
So in these jurisdictions, they say, we don't care that federal law says there's a final order of removal for this individual. We're going to turn them out on the street, release this individual out on the street, and make you send 6 agents, 12 agents, whatever, to get the bad guy on the street when you could have sent one to the jail and just made it easy.
And families of victims who have been affected by the border crisis were also in attendance at the hearing. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
President Trump will be making an endorsement in Texas in the Republican primary soon. The most watched race in the Lone Star State is for U.S. Senate. Republican Senator John Cornyn is defending his seat against State Attorney General Ken Paxton. Neither of the two won over 50% of the votes yesterday, and they will head into a runoff election. The president has previously stayed out of the race, but he now says the Republican primary cannot go on any longer. He says Cornyn and Paxton, quote, ran great races, but not good enough. Trump adding that the GOP must focus completely on defeating the Democratic candidate. The president saying he will be, quote, asking the candidate that I don't endorse to immediately drop out of the race, adding, quote, we must win in November. In lighter news, with early spring warming up, the weather and flowers blooming, you sure don't want to miss the PHS Philadelphia Flower Show running this weekend, this week through Sunday. The award-winning show is now in its 197th year. It's the nation's largest and the world's longest-running horticultural event. Let's take a look.
As winter lingers outside, the Pennsylvania Convention Center has transformed into a vibrant oasis of spring with the 2026 Pennsylvania Horticultural Society Philadelphia Flower Show, welcoming crowds from all over. Under the theme, Rooted, Origins of American Gardening, this year's edition invites visitors to explore the cultural stories, heritage traditions, and historical legacies that have shaped American gardens, perfectly timed with the nation's 250th anniversary celebrations.
Talk about history of gardening in America as a celebration of the 250th anniversary of the United States. PHS was founded in 1827. 2 years later was the first flower show in 1829, and that first flower show was really a place where new plants were showcased. So then over time, the flower show's been many things.
From orchids named after First Ladies of the United States to the joyful vibe of spring blooming scenes of tulips, as well as azaleas, clivias, and all sorts of houseplants too, you name it. Nothing is impossible here when it comes to the variety of creativity intertwined with the long history of gardening, both from within the U.S. and far beyond.
I love it. It's just what we need after this winter in Massachusetts. My favorite flower changes month to month, but as far as the display, right now I'm really loving all the orchid displays.
I really like it. This is our second time coming, so glad to be back.
I think I'm just always amazed by the variety of plants here. There's things I obviously never knew existed, so it's really neat to see. We have some house plants, not too much of the gardening, but I always get inspiration by being here.
It's our second time coming, and we love the beautiful flowers and all the creativity behind the displays.
It was just a beautiful display. A beauty. How do you not know God exists? He's awesome. You see all these wonderful things. So we give God all the glory.
The PHS Philadelphia Flower Show will continue running till this Sunday, March 8th. So if you have some time and would like to immerse yourself in the spirit of spring, be sure not to miss this. From NTD News in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. We're taking a break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.